Appreciate you guys coming out tonight and for Fire Nuggets, Jeff for reaching out and let me yammer on here tonight for you guys. I'm gonna try to keep this thing right around the 2.5 hour mark. This is the first like maiden voyage of this, so there's a good chance that it could go a touch longer. So I hopefully it's worth it to you guys. The whole goal of this thing is really just to give you guys some stuff that hopefully you can take and use. Like, if you get a fire later tonight, hopefully you can take it and use it tonight. I want to try to give you guys some good actionable stuff, just mainly stuff that I've learned throughout my little journey here as a pipeman in the fire service, and it's been good for me. I've learned a lot from a lot of different folks, and want to try to kind of relay some of that stuff to you guys, and just some of the different observations. Really what the focus of this class is. This is basically just all about nozzle work. I'm a firefighter. I work for the Everett Fire Department up here in Washington. I've been a firefighter for a little over 12 years now. And the whole time I've been in the back seat and with a nozzle in my hands. And really, I think where a lot of this comes from for me is, some of the folks that know me have heard me talk about like my first fire. And, my first real fire was something that I had kind of a negative experience in that, like, basically I was trained on a bunch of, pallet fires and in a Class A kind of concrete burn facility prior. And everything was real clean burning and all that kind of stuff. And I remember showing up to this thing and getting to the door and just seeing like just chunky, turbulent, nasty smoke coming out. And this like kind of corkscrew looking intake. And it was myself and another guy who he probably had 6 months to a year, maybe more than I did. And just remember looking into that and going, man, it's either I crawl forward and probably die in this because I don't know what's in there, or I hang out and have to live with being a coward for the rest of my life. So I just kind of pushed ahead, and I had no clue what I was pushing into. That slide was not in my slideshow mentally, and just kind of pushed forward. And I was fighting blind for all intents and purposes. And I mean, it was something that for me I really did not like the feeling of helplessness and not knowing what I was getting myself into. So it just kind of like set me on this trajectory of, well, if I'm going to be on the nozzle for a good long time, which I hope to be, then I'm gonna try to learn more about this. So that was a big wake up call for me. So that's where this class comes from. We're talking about residential firefights here. Not going to get into the commercial realm or anything like that. Really, this is just kind of about the bread and butter push on a commercial or on a residential firefight. The picture here, this is a fire we had in Everett a little bit ago that residential over commercial, and we made the push on this from the Charlie side and with an 1 3/4 line, and it was a heck of a good time. And unfortunately, it was a fatality fire, but it was one that I learned a lot from, and it was something that I'll show some pictures later on about some of these kind of small window fires where you have kind of a small window in time to really like win or kind of get pushed out. And this was kind of one of those, and really drove home the point for me that a lot of these fine details are what allow us to to either take advantage of the small window or to end up with the ladder pipe up and kind of the building coming down. So hopefully you guys learned something tonight, and we're gonna move. So this quote, I think really it really is a good example of kind of my personal mindset. And I think as I've gone on and learned, I think that one of the biggest things that I've been able to pick up is that some of the best firefighters that I've seen are some of the most humble, and they're continually this quote says, you must not only examine the world, but you must simultaneously examine the examiner, meaning yourself. So some of the best firefighters that I know are some of the most introspective and some of the most they know themselves well. They know their weak spots. They know what they're strong at, what they're weak at. They know how they come across to people. They understand. They're very self-aware. And I think one of the biggest roadblocks to information and to whether or not you're actually going to get good at something is if you're not a self-aware person. So it's something that I try to strive to be, and it's not something I'm 100% accurate at all the time, but it's something that I'm very aware that I need to be. And a lot of times along the journey, I've had a lot of moments where it's my hackles kind of go up because I hear something. It's like, I don't like that, and I always have to check, like, is that is that my ego talking? And a lot of times what I've learned, just kind of this isn't exactly firefighting specific here, but a lot of times in my life, one of the things I've come to understand is that if my hackles go up and I identify it's because of my ego, that there's a good chance I need to hear whatever it is I'm about ready to hear. So that philosophy of continually kind of examining myself has really, really helped out, and just something worth passing on there. This is a list, and it is not 100% exhaustive, but it is definitely a lot of the big names that have helped me. Aaron Fields has had a huge impact on me. Jeff Shoup, and like everybody listed in here has had a huge impact on me. I'm sharing a lot of information that was passed on to me by these folks, the guys at West Coast Fire Training, Snohomish County Fire Training Academy, where we've been able to really just dive into this stuff ad nauseum over the last few years. I owe a lot to everybody on this list. And I kind of view it a little bit like you'll hear like a fighter when they come out in MMA or something like that, and they'll kind of list like, oh, this is this guy's fight camp, like an American Top Team or something like that, and you kind of understand like, oh, this guy's got this is the style he's going to fight with a little bit. And like you can tell a little bit by the folks listed here that have had a huge impact on me, and again, there's others that aren't even listed on here. It's just I can go on forever, but you can kind of tell a little bit about the flavor, and a little bit about my style, and there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to pop up, and you're like, oh, I might have heard that from somebody else or whatever. And again, this is just I'm going to try to pass on my understanding of this stuff, and a lot of it is just stuff that I got from people like Fields and like Shoup and like Ray McCormick and Scott Corrigan, Brush, Laguerre. John Tanaka is a guy who had an incredible impact on my career. I'll talk about him later, but he's a retired captain with the Everett Fire Department. I talk to him a lot still, and he's had a huge impact on me, and so these are the names that really the house that built me, so to speak. So very appreciative of these folks and many more. All right, so the quote at the top here, imbuing them a strong bias for action, really is about decisiveness. And I one thing about the fire service, we love our cliches. I think we love to have, throw around like life safety, instant stabilization, property conservation, and all these kind of cliches. And I think they're absolutely rooted in truth. But I've always been the kind of person, like ever since I was a little kid, is, oh, Jay, the sky's blue. I'm like, well, why is the sky blue? Like when I hear something come up, a cliche thrown out, I need specifics. Like I'm a very black and white person, and I've found that really like clarifying the specific mission for why we are there has been something that's been incredibly important to me, and especially like as a nozzleman, what is my purpose? You can tell me it's life safety, and like, what does life safety look like? What does property conservation look like? I mean, like, give me something that I can actually go out and apply to the fire ground, not just like some broad speaking cliche. So, really, this is mine. There's a bunch of them, but really, we're there to get the eyes and the hands of firefighters as close to the seat of the fire as fast as possible to search, remove, and provide relief for trapped occupants, both known and unknown. We'll provide relief and rescue to their family and property in the form of confinement, cooling, lift, and removal of threats to their well-being using a well-practiced and executed hierarchy of action. And the term hierarchy, really, I love that. Scott Corrigan was the one that kind of brought that term to the forefront of my thought process. And the reason why I like that is because, again, being a black and white person, like there is such thing as the best decision to make, and then the next best, and the next best. There is a hierarchy, and Scott calls it a hierarchy of line placement. And I couldn't agree more with that term. Like, yeah, there's such thing as the best option for a certain scenario, and we're going to talk a lot about that tonight. That's kind of a lot about of what this is about. And the reason I like that is because it is black and white. Like you can show up. This was a fire that I was on probation, and there was one option: stretch to the front door, get to the stairs, and get into the stairwell. Get water going, and then fight that thing, from the stairwell. Like that was the best option on that fire. And in the absence of specifics, you kind of end up with like a little bit of ambiguity, or somebody might make a different play call on that fire, and it's like, well, who's right? I mean, how do you turn around and have any sort of a debriefing and say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, without a clearly defined hierarchy? And for me, if I have a clearly defined hierarchy, it's helpful as a nozzleman, because it gives me, like, you tell me, Jay, I want you to do this, and you give me a specific, like, I want you to stretch the line to the front door. I want you to open judge conditions on floor 1, and then if it gives you the opportunity to dry search to 2, dry search to 2, and then fight that thing from the safety of the stairwell. Like, done, I got it, I'm gonna go crush it. So that's very helpful for me personally, instead of just rolling up and saying, well, it's life safety, instant stabilization, property conservation. It's very can be very sorry, my screen just glitched here. That can be something that's anyways, it's doesn't leave me with much of a metric for success. So then any tip, tool, or tactic or method of performing a skill must fit into the above mission. That way it's not up to my personal comfort. If there's something I need to get better at, I can actually judge it against the well-defined mission. So some lessons that we've learned, in our county, up here, Everett Fire, we're a part of the greater Snohomish County area. And in the last few years, we've had a lot of kind of change and a lot of just a lot of growth in this area. And it's really been like the epicenter of a lot of really cool stuff, engine company wise. And so some of the stuff today is going to be just lessons passed on. And one of the things that I have really learned time and time again is the need to work towards staying mission focused and the overall commander's intent, so to speak. So we've gone through a lot of just clearly defining like why the main ingress egress point, the front door, typically on a single family residence or in an apartment or something like that, like why getting the line to that point and then making the firefight from that point is so important. And diving into a lot of the UL stuff, which we'll do tonight, but really just clearly defining, like the previous slide says, the overall mission. The overall mission, at the end of the day, is like we got to get the firefighters' hands and eyes to the interior where the people could be. So where the life space is. If we're not choosing a method, whether so from the rig to the door, if I'm not choosing methods of stretching line, if I'm not masking up quick, if I'm not choosing entry points, all this kind of stuff, if I'm not attacking the fire in a way that is placing the hands and the eyes of firefighters as close to the seat of the fire as possible, to search and remove for those trapped occupants, then it's not fitting into our overall mission. So along the way, definitely had to recognize and check the ego both. So when I talk about it going both ways, like my ego in the process, like it's easy for me getting wrapped up in this stuff to get attached to, it's got to be this way. And I think it's been an important lesson for me that, if I'm going to help facilitate, change in a certain way in my department, in my area, it can't just be the Jay show. It's got to be, other guys have to get on board. And along with that, I got to recognize that I've gone through an immense growth process. I'm not the same person that, I was 5-6 years ago. And that growth process has been, a lot of it has been because of, some of the folks that were listed on the screen earlier. But, other folks are at different stages in their growth processes. And you really need to understand that even though I want something a certain way now, like if it, as long as we're staying fixed on the overall mission, and it fits the overall mission, like the fine details, you got to leave some room for your people to kind of experiment with stuff, play around with some stuff, as long as it's not taking us away from the mission of getting getting the eyes and hands of firefighters as close to the fire as fast as possible to remove people and to extinguish the fire permanently. Then you got to leave room for some people's growth, and you got to understand that in order for somebody to really like truly buy into something, they have to feel like they can have an impact on it. So if they just feel like you've got a stranglehold on it, then you can end up just turning it into the Jay show, and then then you can become white noise. So anybody who knows me well knows that one of my most hated phrases in the fire service is just another tool for the toolbox. A lot of this comes It is. A lot of this comes because I was a mechanic before I was a firefighter. And as a mechanic, there was such thing as the best tool for the job. So it wasn't like about feelings or anything like that. It was just like there was such thing as if you want to make money being a mechanic, you got to get the job done fast. You got to beat the flat rate, and so you got to use the best tool for the job. So then when I get in the fire service and it's just like, oh, just another tool for the toolbox. Here's another tool for the toolbox. Like, well, tools have their place and have their scope. So, what that means to me, just another tool for the toolbox, is that, hey, here's an option for you. And, I'm just going to stop there. I'm not going to actually give you where it fits, either because I'm intellectually lazy or, whatever. And I don't like that. That doesn't really fit well with me, because at the end of the day, like, when you're on a fire, you are reacting, and that's not the time to like play around with tools for the toolbox. Like that's the time you're gonna execute based off of what you know is gonna work. So you're reacting. You're gonna fall back on whatever you're most comfortable with and whatever you've done the most of. So, if you really want to provide like change in your area, you can't just stop at, well, here's another tool for the toolbox. I mean, it's a good way to avoid conflict, but it's not a good way to actually drive the ball across the goal line, so to speak. Like you're trying to provide people, really what you're trying to do is you're trying to instill uh base level reactions in people. Like I'm not just going to give you a tool, I'm going to give you something that when you're under stress and duress and you've got fire blowing out the front door, like you react, you fall back and you react with. So, and that's a lot different than just a tip or a tool or a party trick or something. Like I want it to be a reaction, like a primal reaction in you, that when fire's blowing in your face, you open up that nozzle and you do exactly this. So, part of that, like we're going to talk a lot about systems. Systems as a whole, like a system from the rig to the door, from the door to the seat, so on. When you have a system, the system is strong. Oh, sorry, I just saw a chat thing pop up. Also, I'm kind of like very ADHD. So if I see something pop up, not that you please do it, because I want to talk to you guys, but also I get distracted easily. So I'm kind of like, see something pop up in the corner of my screen, squirrel. But so strive for systems rather than random smatterings of technique. Like a system as a whole is it's strong. So if you implement a hose movement system, whatever that is, that's what when Aaron and Nozzle 4 guys teach, they're implementing a system. Like it's a system is strong, the system's robust. Like if you go into your department, you try to implement some sort of change and you like piecemeal it with little tips and party tricks and stuff like that, like people that have been on the job a long time, especially, I work with a lot of folks who are very experienced, and they're been doing this for a long time. And they see right through that stuff, man, because they've seen stuff come into the fire service and blow out, and they just kind of like, oh yeah, this is the next fad. Like, well, when a system comes in and it's well thought out and it progresses well, like that system, even though it's harder and it takes longer to implement, it has staying power. It's not just like a little party trick that's going to come in and some people go, yeah, I'll use it, and some people, oh, like you have this a overall robust system of this is how we move line and this is how we fight fire in these spaces, and so on and so forth. So they're more effective. You can actually predict what somebody's doing because they're fitting in a system, but they're also they're gonna stay over the long haul. They're gonna stick. So it makes your department less susceptible to mission creep when you have systems. So, come on, baby. There it is. All right. It's about more than hose. These are a couple fantastic quotes. Just one thing to keep in mind here, and I think that this is really important, is like Abe Lincoln says, when I'm getting ready to reason with a man, I spend 1/3 of my time thinking about myself and what I'm going to say, and 2/3 about him and what he's going to say. That is absolutely true. When you're trying to implement change in your area, your department, your crew, whatever, you really got to think about how am I coming across to people, and B, what are they going to have to say about it? And just because I want to be ready. Like I've seen so many people that want to they go out and they take a class and they want to just bomb back to their department and guys, we're doing it all wrong and this and that and the other. We gotta do it this way. And you guys are like, okay, whatever. And I say this because I've been that guy. I was a member of a couple departments prior to getting hired at Everett, and I guarantee you, those folks were like, they witnessed young Jay, gung ho Jay, that was, going out taking classes and coming back, and we're doing it all wrong. The sky's falling, and they're sitting there like, well, shoot, man, I've been putting out fires for a little while, and they seem to be going okay. And you're telling me that, the sky's falling. So there's a big gap in between what I was saying and kind of what they were seeing. And a lot of that was my fault because I wasn't looking at how I was coming across to them, and B, I wasn't looking at through their lens. So I think it's really important to do your due diligence and know the material well. Like, there's just no getting around it. You can't be lazy. You can't go and pick something up real quick and then come back and be teaching it the next Monday. Like, it's something you got to immerse yourself in. You gotta really know it very well, because it turns out firefighters are pretty smart, and especially the ones that've been around a long time. They're very, very hesitant when somebody comes in and tells them something is the best thing since the last best thing. So I want to honor that, and I really live by the principle of I don't want folks that I work with to think that I view them as a project. Like, I value them, and they're my brothers and my sisters, and I don't want to be that guy that's like they say, it's easy to be a big mouth when you're 30 miles away with a PowerPoint or whatever. Like, I don't want it to be looked at that way. In my department, I want to have maintain some capital to be able to make change when it's necessary, and some of that requires not dying on every hill. So I'm pretty big on that, and making sure that you just care about the people that you work with, and stick with them through the process. So at the end of the day, you care about those people, and that's who I'm working with for the next 20 years. So good hose and nozzle combinations. This is something we are still in a ongoing process with this, at least at my department. Like, in some of the areas around us, they've made switches to certain hose and nozzle combinations and everything. And for us, we don't have the money. I mean, we're not a well-off department, and our city is not well off, and it's something that going out and buying new hose and nozzles and stuff is just not in the cards for us right now, and at least for the next little bit. So I mean, we'll see. But one of the things that I've learned with this is you have a limited amount of capital. So I had to like triage what the most important area, like the most bang for my buck, was going to be. Like, the hill that I wanted to die on. And essentially, the hill that I chose to die on was flowing while moving, was the area that I really wanted to make sure that because our area comes from a kind of thermal balance, like hit, shut down, move, kind of like don't steam out the victims, kind of a firefighting methodology. And for the last few years, especially, I've just been immersed in flowing while moving. And prior to that, really what kind of sparked it for me was that first fire where I went into, and the way that I was originally taught how to fight fire was, don't steam out the victim. You got to hit it and shut it down, move forward, and you'll see the bump in the neutral plane. It was very like video game-esque. You see this, and you hit it, and you'll see this bump in the neutral plane. I mean, it was just like none of that happened. I went crawled in there, and it was dark, and it was smoky, and it was popping all over the place, and it was basically I just put water on stuff until the fire went out. I mean, that's essentially what it was. And it was moving very fast, and I didn't really have a good grasp on what was going on around me or what to do. It was a very foreign environment to me. But so that for our area, now our area may be different than a lot of other areas. I'm not well traveled, so you're gonna have to kind of triage your area. If your area has a great flowing and moving culture, then maybe you do want to die on the hill of different hose and nozzle combinations and so on and so forth. For me, it was about I kind of made a decision, like, I'm going to make sure that we emphasize flowing, moving, and just flowing more water generally on our fire attacks. And then over time, people start to kind of pick up on, like, yeah, because you build the case of this is why flowing and moving is so important and all that kind of stuff. And then they kind of start to pick up on, like, man, those nozzles over there seem to, like, do it a lot easier. Maybe the stuff that we got, yeah, the stuff that we got is definitely a lot harder. But it's not an excuse to not fight fire well. Like, I'm not going to use my equipment. I'm going to learn how to flow and move. I'm going to learn how to make a good push with my 100 psi 50 to 350 task force tip automatic nozzle. Like, that's what I got. And it's old, and it's grimy, and it's inconsistent, and it's all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to make that push with that nozzle, and I'm going to not let it be something I have an excuse for. And then as people start to work with it and start to make pushes with these things, they're like, man, these things are they're tough. Like, yeah, they are. Here, I got one in my locker, let's go try this one. Like, oh wow, this one's easy. And then they kind of come to the conclusion on their own. And then really what happens is you get buy-in from other people. So it's not just like Jay saying, we need to push like this, and we need to have these nozzles and this hose. It's Jay saying this over here, and you got another guy saying this over here. Like, you've got multiple voices that are ultimately saying the same thing. And that's really where you want to get to with your department is you want to create buy-in, and buy-in doesn't happen overnight. It's a long process, and you have to be very well thought out. You have to be very intentional about not burning up your capital and turning into white noise. So here's a video of what a good hose and nozzle combination looks like, and I promise you, this is true 2.5 with a 1.125 and turns out with true 2.5 and a 1.125, you can actually knee walk that sucker. So when you see somebody knee walking 2.5, flowing 265 gallons a minute, and then you pull your 2.5 out, and you open up, and the thing wants to make you slide backwards across the pavement, like, it becomes pretty evident pretty quickly, like, there's a difference. These two things are not equal. So they do make it, the right hose and nozzle combination is absolutely important. But I couldn't die on every hill and use all my capital up. So that's kind of a good lesson that I've learned. All right, so now we're going to get into the actual push. So what are we trying to accomplish with the hose stream? This is a term from Dennis Laguerre. I love it. Greed-based extinguishment. I'm going to watch this video here. This is an acquired structure burn that we did. I love this video because it really shows the essence of confinement on the fire ground. So nozzle goes in. You see this building is pretty choked down and snotty. They're going to hit the top of the stairs, and then you just watch the smoke as they start making the push. You just watch the smoke from the living room over off to the left, and you watch them slowly take over the middle bedroom, and then finally the fire room. So you can see just how quickly, as soon as the nozzle hits the top of the stairs, like, you can basically say this whole back half, this living room, you'll see me pop out in just a second here. I was sitting up in the living room here. As soon as the nozzle hit the top of the stairs there and turned and started ripping water down that hallway, this whole back half is instantly protected. I mean, it was very hot over in that living room prior to that nozzle getting up there. We had a lot of fire rolling down that hallway. And, you know, it's a good, kind of a good lesson in split levels, just how much heat they can accumulate in that top level there. Split levels and split entries, you can get a lot of heat accumulated up there. But that nozzle, as soon as they got in there, it was like night and day difference. Instantly, this whole living room, kitchen area was just like, all of a sudden, oh man, that feels good. And then the nozzle starts making the push down the hallway, and all the fresh air is coming in behind them. And this room, as soon as the nozzle gets to this room right here, it's like you can just see it, the hydraulic ventilation that's happening as that nozzle is making the push, and everything's contracting and lifting. This room's protected now, and then they're starting to get water into the actual fire room through the door, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth later. And just everything, as soon as the stream gets in that door, you can just see all the contraction happen, and everything just pick up, and the speed behind the nozzle of all that air moving with them towards the fire room. I mean, that's greed-based extinguishment right there. That is, we're drawing a line in the sand, and we are going to walk this thing back, and we're going to confine it. And then ultimately, from as far away as possible, AKA the end of the hallway, if I can, if line of sight lets me, I'm going to get water in that fire room, and I'm just going to keep that nozzle in that fire room as I walk my way down that hallway, and I'm going to push this thing out that back window. And then you can see this is a 7/8 hydraulically ventilating. Turns out those things move a lot of air. So that's it. That fire is done. So really, the goal with our first attack line, and you know, in the residential firefights too, there's a few tangible things, and like I was talking about earlier, I want to be very specific. Like, what am I trying to do? Yes, it's about life safety, incident stabilization, property conservation. Like, what does that look like? So, a direct quote from UL: when an interior suppression is chosen, more water used on the approach to the fire relates directly to more tenable conditions for potential trapped occupants and suppression crews. So we're trying to stop and reverse the flow path if possible. Okay, I want to, as soon as my nozzle opens and I get water ripping down range, I am basically saying, everything behind me, you're good. Everything in front of me, you're about ready to get better. I'm drawing a line in the sand right there. I want to contract the gases and cool all the surfaces. Okay, and this is something that was missing in my my personal, or the early part of my journey, was cooling all the surfaces, because I was trained in concrete burn building with a like defined pallet fire seat. And you know, I didn't understand the concept that heat and smoke take the shape of the box. They take the whole ceiling, and I was sitting there going, boop, and I was just poking, I was penciling, poking stuff, because I thought that if I flowed too much water, I would you know, hurt victims. It was well intentioned, like I wanted to do what was right for the victims, but ultimately I wasn't, come to find out. And so I want to cool all of those surfaces. Like, you know, Dennis says, I want that greed-based extinguishment. I want to achieve lift. I want to improve oxygen levels in all spaces. And I want to just systematically take the building back. That's just another term for confinement. Like, that is what confinement looks like. I want to, whatever is involved when I get there, that room, 2 rooms, 3 rooms, I want to draw that line in the sand, and I want to start working. That residential firefight, it just happens 1 room at a time. The fire grows, room to hallway, you know, it's gonna grow and take over that first room. It's preheating the hallway, okay? Now it takes over, spills out into the hallway, then it's gonna take over a room with an open door. It's coming out to the living room next. Like, I just fight it. I put the thing back in the box in the exact reverse order. And I understand that as that fire and that heat and that smoke and everything, it takes the shape of whatever box it's in. My stream needs to take the shape of the box and then work that thing back into the room in reverse. A big thing that we had to kind of work through in our area was, you know, like, where does transitional or exterior water fit? You know, and different departments in our area kind of handle stuff differently in this regard. And, you know, really, this is something that Field says a lot. It's work from probable to possible. And I am a huge believer that for the farther in my fire service journey that I get, I'm a huge believer in that. And I'll also add air to your highest percentage moves. So this is just a video of an exterior tack, and this is not meant to like rip on exterior tacks or anything like that, because, you know, like they absolutely have their time and their place when there's a delay, you know, to getting inside. And, you know, there's some other, you know, especially in the multifamily realm, there's some other, you know, reasons and stuff. And this is not an exterior tack class, so I don't want to like go in depth on this. But what I do want to kind of hit on was that, you know, we really had to kind of work through why a good push is so valuable in our area. And so I'm going to just kind of relay some of the stuff that we went through. And one of them, in order to say, if I'm going to show up and say like, hey guys, we need to value this push, then inevitably what comes up is, well, why wouldn't I just hit it, you know, hit it from the outside? And so here's a video, just one of the things with an exterior attack. So when we talk about working from probable to possible, airing to our highest percentage moves. So these guys are going to flow water in this window for quite some time. And, you know, not to pick on them, it's just a very good example of there with exterior attack, you can end up with a lot of different variables that cause it to not work, or, you know, to work poorly or whatever. You know, failed ceilings and improper angles, and you have cars in the way that are causing your, you know, you can only hit it from out here, and so you got a flat angle, you know, shrubbery and landscaping and stuff. There's all sorts of different reasons. And, you know, so really this video is going to go on for another few seconds. So really with the exterior attack, that's kind of what we had to explain, and what we had to really go back and kind of re-educate folks on, was that it's not a silver bullet. It's not something, it's not the nozzle at the interior door. Like this fire with the nozzle at the interior door, or the end of a hallway, firing water down and making a push on this thing with the nozzle open, like that fire's out in, you know, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, right? But from the exterior, you can see they're going to sit here, and you talk about like return on investment. You know, that's not good return on investment. You get one shot with your first line. And again, that mission, being the clearly defined mission of getting eyes and hands of firefighters as close to the scene of fire as possible, to remove and protect trapped occupants. You know, we're spending a lot of time here. We're not getting good return on our investment. And that's not to say that's always the case with exterior attack, because it's not, but there's a higher percentage or a higher likelihood that something like this happens, where I lack return on investment with this exterior attack, than there is by getting the nozzle into the top of the stairs and then making the push down the hallway. When I do that, my return on investment is going to be very high. I'm going to put the fire out permanently. There's going to be no rebound. And I'm going to, if there's anybody down in that hallway and that second floor there, I'm going to locate them a lot faster. So it's just kind of about, you know, talking through with your crews about, you know, the potential for a scenario like this. Or I'll back up a slide here. So, you know, this same house with two, I mean, this is a acquired structure. This house with two cars in the driveway here in this same fire room, I don't have an angle. If that, you know, if I show up on this fire, this is a real fire, I don't have an angle with a car parked here to be able to get water in that window, other than a pretty flat angle. So, you know, again, it's not that I'm advocating against them, it's that I'm advocating for a hierarchy. And the hierarchy for us is that we don't want to let exterior water by choice be something that delays us into the building. Like, we don't just choose exterior water just because it's what makes us comfortable. We choose it when delays are present. Like we can't get into the building. It's an exterior fire. You know, like there's a whole algorithm we go down for when to actually use exterior water. And then when our crews use it, it's because they're using it because they're basing it off of something that's actually factual and a clearly defined progression. They're not just like kind of throwing some stuff up in the air and going, I like exterior attack for this one. Because like we said, it's not always going to work exactly like you think it is. So these are just some quotes here. We don't need to read the whole thing. I know it's a lot of words, but I just highlighted some stuff. These are directly out of UL. And like the previous slide here, this is a direct quote from UL. The hallway temperatures decreased permanently only after interior suppression was initiated, okay? Same thing here. The decrease was only temporary. The temperatures increase and nearly return to their original values in each of the experiments. I mean, these are, I just wanted to provide, I know it's a lot of words, but I just wanted to provide like context so that you guys can see. If you want to, you know, go back and look at this thing and take pictures or whatever, like go for it. I just want to provide the context so that you see the quotes kind of in totality. So I'm not like cherry picking stuff, you know, as much. In fact, temperature 7 feet above the floor nearly returned to its original value before the next intervention. So boom, in all these instances, we have, you know, an exterior attack with a, you know, a rebound. And, you know, this is stuff that hopefully I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this have probably gone through all these studies and stuff. But that was really important for us to, you know, relay to our crews is that, you know, hey, there's a high likelihood that we're going to get a lot of temperature rebound, whereas the interior suppression we're putting it out and we're putting it out permanently. So, all right, so we're going to get into why would you hit and move versus why would you push. So this was probably the biggest hurdle in our area was, again, we were hit and move heavy, and flowing while moving was something that was very, you know, very foreign to our area. And it was funny because, you know, you'd see people, you know, from all over the county, multiple departments, and, you know, all of us were kind of, you know, schooled up in a lot of the same way. We'd talk about how we would fight a fire, and it would be very, you know, like scientific, and oh, I, you know, hit it, but I don't want to steam people out, and I, you know, blah 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 blah, and all these like visual cues and everything. And then we'd go on fires, and you just see people like they're just putting water on it until it goes out. You're like, man, there's a big disconnect. Like I just had an argument with this guy in a classroom or a drill ground about how to fight a fire, and he was talking about, you know, slicing and dicing BTUs and this and that and the other, and then he just went on a fire, and like I just watched him keep the nozzle open until the fire went out, which is not at all how he sounded like he was going to do it. And you know, I think it's because you know, firefighters just kind of know, like, I got to put the fire out, you know. It takes a certain amount of water. And so getting people over the hurdle mentally of it's okay to flow a lot of water, in fact it's actually good, was something that we definitely had to work through. And you know, I learned a lot going through that process. So we had to do, and Aaron Fields helped us out a lot with kind of when to hit and move versus when to push, you know. And so a lot of this stuff is stuff that I learned from him, or, you know, from other folks about, you know, Scott Corrigan was a big help as well. So again, some quotes from UL here. So yeah, applying water down the hallway. We entrain air and alter the flow path in a way that the hot gases are no longer flowing over the heads of firefighters. When advancing during interior attack with the vent opposite, the entrainment was not only capable of stopping the flow at the hallway, it was capable of redirecting the flow ahead of the advance. I mean, that's stuff that, you know, prior to really diving into flowing while moving, and you know, early on in my career, I had no clue that was possible. It's like, man, as soon as I learned that, I was like, oh shoot, that's exactly what you want to do. And then this one was from the most recent study in the multifamily. It said, in a related manner, the fire attack study also highlighted the importance of keeping the nozzle open and flowing during interior advancement to not only control the space and cool the surfaces, but also to protect firefighters on their approach to the fire compartment. So, when you dive into these studies, which I encourage everybody to do, there's, just overwhelming evidence that an open nozzle, an open and flowing nozzle while we move forward is just incredibly beneficial to us and the victims. And, we talk about wanting to err to our high percentage moves. And, where I'm going to hit on this a lot tonight is that the highest percentage move is an open and flowing nozzle. I mean, that's it. So, there are times to hit and move. And like I said, there's times for that exterior attack, but our highest move, in regards to our hierarchy, the highest percentage move is the open and flowing nozzle working its way progressively to confine and extinguish the fire. So, once we got that relayed to folks in our area, using a lot of this stuff, UL was very helpful in just being able to provide like something other than just Jay's opinion, which doesn't count for much. So it was very helpful for us, and I think it was well received. So just a little bit more kind of food for thought or evidence. I like providing this stuff so that it's not coming as much from me as it is, just stuff that I found useful from the UL reports. Again, here this quote pops up: more water used on the approach relates directly to more tenable conditions for potential trapped occupants and suppression crews. All right, so when to hit and move and when to push. And when I talk about hit and move for us is, I'm going to hit it, start high over my head, work my stream back, reach deep as I can, shut down and move forward. And we really had to kind of differentiate and actually change what the definition of hit and move was to us, because for a long time, hit and move was penciling for us, and penciling is, you can dive into the UL stuff with that. Penciling is just it's ineffective. You're not doing anything. So for us, we had to redefine what hit and move was. And hit and move, what we kind of found out was that if I tell somebody like, hey, I want you to hit for 10 seconds, it's actually about, in the real world, what translates to is like 3 to 5 seconds, because you're always moving about twice as fast as you think you are. Like when you go on a fire, you're sped up, and we found out that at first we were telling people like 5 to 8 seconds. We noticed we we're still getting these hits that were like, boom, shut down, move forward. And like, whoa, that was basically a pencil. And they're like, I flowed for 5 seconds. No, you didn't, right? So in order to get like a good solid hit and actually take the shape of the box, like when I open up the front door to a house, a lot of times what my first room that I met with is a big room, like a living room. If I just like blast, a second of water up into the center of that ceiling, I'm not getting good coverage of that entire heated surface. It is the ceiling and especially the upper register of the walls. I'm just kind of squirting some water in the center of that, and we've got some tick footage we'll watch later where there's like a little bit of a jelly hole of cool, and everything around it is just completely unaffected, and then that little jelly hole just shrinks back, and there's the heat basically takes it over again, like I did nothing to it. So hit and move had to get defined as I open the line, start high, I take the shape of the box that I'm in, and I work the stream downrange as far as I can, sweep the floor maybe a couple of times, and then come back up. I'm flowing for about 10 seconds is what we try. And with our recruit academy, we'll have the recruits count off 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, and 10 seconds seems almost uncomfortably long sometimes. And it's by design, because we'd rather, and this was something I learned from Scott Corrigan a while ago. He said, I'd rather have my recruits start off heavy-handed, and then we can kind of taper them back as they gain experience, when it's appropriate. But I want them heavy-handed, because when they start out heavy-handed with water, I can go in and be like, hey, man, great job on that. That was a little, food on the stove fire that extended up to some cabinets and stuff. Like you didn't need to totally dominate the kitchen on that one. You know, I can't, but what I can't correct is somebody who was taught the opposite, like I was taught, which is to go in there and squirt and not, you know, steam stuff out, and then have somebody behind you going, hey, open up the nozzle, open up the nozzle. Like you don't always have that luxury of being able to convey to that person in the firefight, open up the nozzle, until sometimes it's too late. So have a heavy-handed approach first. So with a hit and move, when to hit and move versus when to push. When to hit and move, if the seat is unshielded, aka you've got a direct line of sight with the nozzle, so water doesn't bend. If I open up the door and I have a kitchen fire, and I've got from the front door, I got, you know, a bunch of smoke coming out, and I've got a glow in the kitchen, and I can go boom, 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 and get a bunch of water down into the kitchen, and I'm getting water directly on the seat of the fire, and then I can shut down and move up on the thing. That's a great. I'm not going to get that rebound that happens. So I'm actually getting water on the seat of the fire from the point in which I hit. Another time to use hit and moves is small fires are contained to the room of origin. Again, you know, like if there's a defined neutral plane, it's probably a pretty, you know, light or small fire in a lot of cases. So, you know, where I'm moving in and maybe, you know, see some stuff kind of starting to come out of a bedroom or something like that, and boom, 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 and I drop that nozzle in, I get some water in that room, shut it down, because I get some knockdown from a little bit of a distance, shut it down, move in. That's a point in time to use hit and move. Another spot to use hit and moves is to earn a space so that I can move into it and set up for a push. And this is something we'll talk about in a little bit here, where you know, I'm kind of using it like a jab, like you know, the top of the stairs in the split level is a great example. So boom, 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 boom. Hit cool that space. I'm renting it temporarily. I understand that as I move into it, it is now rebounding and returning, but my goal is to cool it so that I can occupy it. So I cool it, bump up into it, turn, and then I start my push from there, as opposed to having to start my push from that doorway and then go around the corner. I'm kind of speeding up the operation. I'm earning that space for myself temporarily so that I can bump up into it and start my push. And then, you know, this is from Fields. He was talking to us about, you know, where to hit and move, where to push. I like this term. He calls it an insurance hit. Like if you're not sure, if you're, you know, and I've had to do this, I don't know how many times, where I'm just not sure what I should do. And so, you know, if you're not sure, blow some water, man. If you're drop down on your knees and you're crawling around and you're not 100% sure, I think it's just warranted. You can, if your gut's telling you, so a lot of times your gut's pretty accurate, just blow water. So, and then when do you push? So if it's a shielded fire, like we're, you know, opposite of unshielded, it like a bedroom fire, and I'm in the hallway, like I can't get water into that bedroom door because that water doesn't bend. I can flow a ton of water in that hallway, but I'm not going to put that fire out until the stream gets through the door. So, you know, what that push, like we were talking, you know, the UL quote said earlier about how we have the ability to stop and redirect the flow path. I will, in that hallway, I'll stop it, and then once my stream gets actually in through the doorway, that's when the redirection really happens, is as soon as that stream gets through that doorway. So anytime for us, fire and heat are leaving the room of origin. This is kind of, so we had to clearly define, like, when do you push? This was a big thing for our area, was clearly articulating to people, because they're like, you know, first off, everybody, you playing the guess what I'm guessing, guess what I'm seeing game with everybody, and they're like, well, I had a fire and we didn't have to do this. We didn't, you know, it's just like, you can get lost in that game of guess what I'm seeing. And so what we came down to was a very just simple, hey, if the fire and the heat are leaving the room of origin, like, you know, that door's open, and fire is actually coming out in the hallway, it's time to push. Okay. That way it kind of just cleared it up for people. And, you know, that doesn't mean again, people thought that, well, do I start, like, I'm just going to start flowing water from the doorway? Like, no, you're not. You're going to move in, drop down, see fire coming out of the, down the hallway there, and you start your push from the beginning of the hallway on something like that. But you got to make sure that you're talking to people that we're both talking about the same fire. That is something that was very evident very quickly, that we weren't all talking about the same fire. Multiple spaces involved, obviously, like multiple spaces involved, I'm going to have significant rebound. So if my nozzle's not open, I'm just going to take a beating. Multiple rooms involved, without that nozzle open. Kind of on one of the other ends of the spectrum is hot, fast, and turbulent smoke. Like I've got smoke that's just kind of churning. It's got some good speed to it. Like this was something that came up because we don't always like see a glow. A lot of times you open that door or you get up to that door, cops kick it in or something like that. You show up and the door is already open. You just have like just chunky, nasty smoke coming out. That smoke means that the surfaces are hot, so they need to be cooled. That was something that was very valuable, I think, especially for our recruits, like telling them, hey, you see this, and we show them pictures and video. You see turbulent, hot, or fast smoke. That means the surfaces are hot, aka they need to be cooled. So we're going to take them back, and our stream's going to take the shape of the box because we know the heat is taking the shape of the box. And then limited zero visibility kind of goes along with hot, fast, turbulent smoke. But sometimes when you're inside, you can't exactly see, like how fast and turbulent. Sometimes you can't always feel because of how isolated we are in our ear, how hot it is. So limited or zero visibility is again another indicator that we're probably going to need to push. Like, obviously not a sprinkler controlled fire, and you can head that one off at the pass. But heat and smoke rebound after nozzle shut. Like if you hit it, boom, 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 and I do a hit and I shut that nozzle down and I get heat and smoke rebound, I got to push that. And that's more for, in a lot of cases, that's more for, life that's potentially on the ground. It is necessarily for me, like getting our folks away from the mindset of like, oh, my gear can take it. Well, it's not about you, man. It's about the life space that could be possibly in that building, or that could possibly be. Like just because your gear can take it doesn't mean that the poor old woman on the floor can take this significant blowtorch that's coming down the hallway. And I've sat in a lot of acquired structures to really get like a good appreciation. In an acquired structure setting, doing these burns, you get an appreciation because I'm sitting in the same space that victims would be in, and you really get a good appreciation for what they feel. And then push if you're, again, gut feel. If you feel like you need to push. All right, so own the junctions and the mesh points. This is something that became, I just talked with Scott Corrigan the other day about this. I was trying to like articulate exactly why it's something that became important to me, but I couldn't really put into words. Like why do I do this? Why is it so important to me? And he helped me kind of parse through like how to explain it. So buildings have, residential structures have like natural mesh points, and just how they're laid out. And I gave just some examples here. You can go through the different buildings in your areas and find these. I just call them the junctions, the mesh points. It's where, so I've got bedrooms, I've got the kitchen, the dining room, living room, and then I've got my entryway. Like when I go in that entryway, it's usually this mesh point is about 10 to 15 feet in that front entryway, if not right out of the, right inside the door. And it's that first point that I get to where I've got line of sight with my nozzle, right? I've got line of fire with my nozzle to multiple different locations, whether it's a bedroom, the kitchen, or the living room, dining room. And this is a point in which I think it's very important. I pause at this point. This is my first like kind of checkpoint. When I get to a building, just from the exterior, like this is kind of my personal size up when I show up to a building is because I'm a pipeman, so I'm not an officer. I don't get a 360. I kind of get like our engine will pull up, we'll pull past the building, leave the front for the truck. So I might get like a good two-sided view. So I'll take the building and I'll go, okay, is it wider than deep or deeper than wide? like if it's a single family residence. If it's an apartment, you know, you can get into a little bit different here. Like, you know, apartments are pretty easy, especially like the garden styles and stuff like that. But for single family residence, is it deeper than wide, or is it wider than deep? And then I'll just take the building and I'll have it. Like, where's the velocity? Where's the density of the smoke coming? Like, where's the seat of the fire? Is it on that side? Is it on that side? If it's deeper than wide, I'll, you know, is it in the front half or the back half? And then if I get a good two-sided view, I'll just have it again, you know, or quarter it, right? So it gives me a little bit of a bearing of where I'm going to. And that kind of gives me a good idea, because ultimately the goal for me is to use the reach of my stream. We're going to talk more about this later. But if I can get into this point right here, this junction or this mesh point, and pause for a second, this first view here that I get when I open up this door, I'm getting just like a bunch of smoke. And my first read is, when I get to the door, is it below me on my level or above me? If it's below me, then I will have all exhaust at that door. If it's on my level, I'll have some sort of an intake or an exhaust. I'll have some sort of an intake exhaust exchange. And then if it's above me, like hopefully I see that from, you know, the street, but also, you know, I'm expecting a clear floor one if it's above me. So if I have, you know, we're just going to say this is a fire on my level. So I've got some sort of an intake exhaust exchange. I'm paying attention to that intake. Well, from that doorway, if I can see the way that intake is going, you know, which way the air is going, that's obviously an indicator where the fire is at. Well, this junction or this mesh point here, I get here and I pause, and it allows me to do something, which is, first off, if I need to flow, if I haven't already flown to like hit this so that I can move into it, then I'm going to just move up into this point and I pause. And then this gives me the best line of sight from the furthest away point that I can into basically the whole building. So if I do have a fire in the master bedroom or in this bedroom or in the kitchen or in the dining room or the living room, I'm going to be able to hit it from this point right here, which is my furthest line of sight point away. And again, this is like this one over here is a deeper than wide building, or like a lot of the old 1.5, 2.5 story houses in my area. And kind of the north end, we have a lot of just old houses, and they're, you know, kind of these deep old houses. So I can get in the living room, kind of fade to the outside of the living room there. And if it's a bedroom fire, I'm going to be able to get water in that bedroom from over here. I'm not over committing essentially. So if I over commit, then, which I've done before, it's kind of nerve wracking, because then you kind of hear stuff behind you and you're turning around and like, oh shoot, it's back over there. And you can end up kind of coming up on the fire a little bit sooner than maybe you anticipated, or you can end up in a little bit more heat than you want to quite be in, because you're thinking about where you're going. So this is a good opportunity for me to pause. If I've got fire, visible fire, if I understand where the direction of the fire is, I'm going to get my stream going, boom, 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 downrange. And then that allows my backup, whoever's coming in behind me, to offload hose opposite. Like if the fire is down here in the master bedroom, they can offload hose in the opposite hallway here, so that as I start to make my push down this hallway here, I'm drawing the hose from straight behind me instead of drawing hose around the corner here and binding down on the inside. So it gives them an opportunity to kind of load hose to make my advance happen seamlessly. And you can just see some pictures here, like so this one on the bottom left is a screenshot, or it's a picture of the stairwell. Like we're on floor 2 up here. So stairwells are a, you know, great mesh point or great junction, the top of the stairs here, where I can kind of start to push up the stairs and I can pause up here at the top, and I'm waiting for that glow to come back. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second, about what, you know, why that glow is so important to look for. This is just inside the front door, about 5 feet inside the front door. And you can see there's a two-way go in this old house, right? There's kind of your dining room over here, kitchen's in the back, living room's over here. So again, it's a good point to kind of pause and get in, and then maybe I'm at least conscious about where that air is going and then where my stream is going. And I can use my stream the full width of it, or the full depth of this thing, and try to rip water all the way to the back if I have to. And then same thing in this house. about 5 feet inside the front door. I can reach my stream all the way back there, and I can reach my stream all the way into the kitchen from this point. So I don't want to overcommit if possible. I want to pause. Here's an example of hit and move right here. Now, something I would say is that, again, this is early, this is a little bit early on, before we really defined it well. That was way short, like self-critique there. That was way short, and I'm moving way fast. And also, because it's for a video, there's no smoke and fire. Another thing that we've kind of honed in on is if you need to hit it more than once, you need to push it. Like that means rebound's happening. You need that needs to be open the nozzle, call for a push, up you go and go. So just a little bit of self-critique there, but that's an example of that kind of boom, 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 get water down range, shut the line down, move forward. Another thing for our area was that visibility and survivability are not the same. So when you go to make a push and you start flowing water, a lot of times you lose visibility as a nozzleman. You're the last one to appreciate your work, but everybody behind you appreciates your work very quickly. And also everybody that might be in other rooms in the building. Again, doing this acquired structure burns, it has been very, very eye-opening for a lot of people, myself included. Just sitting in some of these areas where victims are a lot of times, and being able to watch push after push after push, and taking my gloves off. I know I'm not supposed to, but taking my gloves off and like filming this stuff with our cell phone cameras. Ian's shaking his head. Yeah, I know, but it's very eye-opening. It's okay. It's okay. It's gonna be all right. I haven't been burned yet. Actually, the one burn that I got a few weeks ago was a big defensive fire. So go figure. But it's common to lose visibility, and we got to understand that even though we do lose visibility, I was always taught that visibility just like that's steam coming out on the victims. Like, oh no, it's not actual steam. It's like it's water vapor, and it's cool, and the air is coming in. And yeah, having your glove off while we make these pushes and these acquired structures, you kind of get to feel like even ahead of the nozzle in areas where you're like, oh man, it's somebody's they're gonna burn there. You learn real quickly that no, it gets amazing really fast as soon as that nozzle starts working. When the nozzle shuts down, it starts to get worse quickly. So Charles' law is the law of gas expansion and contraction. The faster we make things cool, the more survivable space we make. So Charles' law is essentially the way that I learned it was, very specific, but in a general sense, it's that as gases heat, they expand, and as they cool, they contract. So that contraction, that lift that happens, and then we get some of the water vapor that'll kind of settle all around the floor. Like that's not this, big steam bomb that's coming down and killing and hurting people. So as a nozzleman, just something you can do to kind of help yourself is take a low look prior to opening up, so that you can kind of set your course. So when I get in, before I start flowing, I'll look nice and low along the ground, and I'm keying myself in on the direction that I need to kind of go. And then after I go, after I start to push, and I start working my way, and I'll lose visibility, I'm all stream sounds and feeling, but that first initial look is really what helps set my course, and then I can maintain with the feel of my stream. If you need to shut down because you're disoriented, just do it and find your bearings again, open up again soon. This happens, more regularly than people probably think, that you start to make your push and things are slamming around and it's noisy and everything, and you get blown off course a little bit. And it's okay. This is why it's really important not to just open up the nozzle and just start charging forward. Like open up, get water going down range, kind of chill out for a second, let the water, kind of like a crock pot. Like my driver at work, he's our chef, and he's always talking about, like, when you put stuff in the crock pot, you got to kind of let it kiss and hug for a little while. Like same thing with the nozzle. You open it up, you let the water go down range and kind of kiss and hug for a little while and do its thing, and then you start moving up on it. So if I just open up the line and charge forward, if there is going to be visibility, a lot of times I outrun it. if I pause for a second and let stuff kiss and hug downrange for a little bit, for a few seconds before I start to move forward, if there is going to be visibility, I'll be able to have some of that. And then even if there's not, I'm keying in on what that room sounds like, and it gives me a second to be able to kind of register. Okay, there I found the door. Boom, there we go. Now I can go. So here's a video of hit and move versus a push. So we got a push on the right and then a hit and move on the left. And this push on the right initially starts out, he hits the corner and then he shuts down, and you can see it happens really fast, but this thing rebounds down the hallway at him pretty aggressively. And then this guy, he was supposed to push on the left, but he didn't. I'm gonna turn this volume down. Okay, so he hits it, and then boom, this thing comes right down the hallway at him. So we're gonna watch that one more time real quick. Hits it, rolls back down the hallway, he's back on the gas into the room. That's a great push right there. Like, he registered instantly. He hit it, the glow came back over the head, and it was back on the gas and into the room we go, stuff it back where it came from. And as soon as that nozzle opened, you can see that guy kind of off to the right go like, oh, look at how cool it is, and how, all that kind of stuff on the nozzle. Everything gets so much better, so fast. You just like putting a cork in this thing and sealing it off. I mean, that is the essence of confinement right there. And then this guy on the right, or on the left, excuse me. This isn't like a big fire or anything like that. This is a little room fire. And even still, when he comes around this corner, he hits it real briefly. He doesn't even get it near the room. It doesn't affect it at all. And he's just taken a lot of radiant heat to his mask, to the front of his body there. And then this thing, boom, it comes right back out the doorway. And this guy's bumping up behind him. The video kind of cuts off, but this guy's bumping up behind him. This is the officer, and he's trying to tell him, like, dude, push the thing because it's hot. And that's not a huge fire that they're dealing with right there. Like, that's a little room fire. And you got to think about, like, again, your highest percentage moves. Your highest percentage moves are the ones that are going to work throughout the spectrum the best. So, can you get a lot of cute little party tricks to work on small fires? Absolutely. You can get a lot of stuff to work on small fires. And this is a lot of where, my learning came from, was being trained on little tiny pallet fires and getting a lot of cute stuff to work. But then, you go and you got 2 rooms or 3 rooms going, and you've got to keep the nozzle open for 2 minutes to get it knocked down. That's a different animal. So the same little cute party tricks don't necessarily work there. Break here in just a second. So here's a good opportunity, or this is a good situation in which to hit a space. So I call it renting a space. And again, just like a fighter using a jab. So this is a view from the living room down the hallway to a bedroom fire, and the nozzle is coming. It's a split entry house, so the nozzle is going to come. They're going to hit the top of the stairs from below at the doorway. They're going to hit the top of the stairs, bomb up, turn, and then start to make their push down the hallway. It's a great opportunity. You can use this, all kinds of buildings to be able to set up for the push. And it's just like a jab. Like, the jab isn't the knockout punch, right? The jab sets up, it creates angles, and it sets us up for, the big right, or for the, the takedown. Like, it's a means to an end. And, this is just something that really has become evident to me, that, because a lot of our folks in our county and our region were using, essentially they were fighting with only a jab. Like, it was hit and move only, boom, boom, boom. Well, that's going to work on, a good chunk of the fires, a good chunk of the smaller fires that's going to work on, but eventually it's not going to. So like, a fighter uses a jab, a hit and move can be used for distance management. So I can, hit it from far away, shut down, move up into that space to start my push. That's distance management. Or to create angles, to allow, so I can hit that space, to allow me to, when I move up into it, or when I move into that space that I know it's temporary, right? As soon as I move up into it, I'm probably gonna have to start flowing again, because all my work that I just did is now all, it's all undone. That fire rebounded because I'm not able to get any water actually on the seat. So, but what it did was it allowed me, over the long term of this fire attack, it allowed me to gain a good chunk of ground with minimal effort, right? Which a lot of pushes are, um, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes even. And I think that gets kind of lost in translation a little bit, because again, even in the acquired structure burning world, like we're doing 1-room fires, 2 rooms, 3 rooms, so on and so forth. You can end up having the nozzle open for a good chunk of time. And I've been able to be a part of some of those burns, to be able to be in there. And then also, it's hard for me, like when I make those pushes at work, when I'm on the nozzle at work, it's hard for me because I lose track of time a little bit. So it's hard for me to really get an appreciation. I can remember, a bunch of these different fires where like there's multiple rooms involved, and it just feels like a blink of an eye. But then you go, into the acquired structure realm, and you're able to, when you're doing it appropriately, and you're able to get, a couple of rooms going, then you get a good sense, like when you're not the nozzleman. Oh man, that took 60, 90 seconds for that guy to get a hold of. Like, that's a long time. So it's kind of how can I set myself up to be able to instead of pushing from that door and using all that effort, all that extra effort, how can I set myself up for the long haul, to be able to be efficient with myself? And we'll talk more about that later. But also, like a fighter, the jab, the hit and move creates opportunity, but should not be dependent on to drop the opponent. Like if you're just fighting with your jab, that's like fighting with one arm behind your back. You're just fighting with your jab. A firefighter refusing to push is the equivalent of a fighter refusing to do anything except for jab. If they do win, it's because they were either lucky, like an unshielded seat where you're actually able to get water on the fire, on the seat of the fire, with great line of sight, or his opponent was so outmatched that anything would work. Like it's a small fire, and that's what a lot of people build their fire attack plan off of. Is it's these small fire wins, and they just extrapolate it, thinking that it's going to work for everything over the whole spectrum. Given a more evenly matched opponent, though, you'd be insane to limit your arsenal. Like, again, train to the highest percentage moves, air to your highest percentage moves, and then you can kind of taper it back as the scene presents itself if you need to. But be prepared going in that this is I'm going to the front door and I'm going to push this thing. Like, that's the mindset that I show up with, because that is the highest percentage move. So here's a good hit. Probably could have even been a little bit longer, but he moves up into the space, starts flowing water, and he pauses. And this is really important here. So this little detail that he does is really important, right? He's going to move forward right there. So when he moves forward just a little bit, he frees up this space for his backup man to come in behind him and offload hose down opposite of his direction of travel. That's a fantastic drill that you can do with yourself and your crews, is to hit a space, move into it, start flowing water, and then just scoot forward and pause for a second, because now that frees him up to come in behind you. If I don't do that, if I stay right here, he's hunkered down at the bottom of the stairs. So when I start going down the hallway, now he's trying to play catch up and trying to keep this hose line here from binding down on the inside corner. And he's just going to have to get up to the top and real quick row to try to keep this line from binding down on the inside. If I pause, he's going to be able to offload this hose opposite of my direction of travel. And as soon as I start working my way down, it buys him a bunch of extra time. Now he's ahead of me. Like, once the nozzle's going, we're good. I'm stopping and reversing that flow path. I'm good. where I'm buying him some time to get ahead of me, and then I start moving forward. And actually it helps me in the long run because it allows my advance to go without the line pinching down on the inside corner. As soon as it does that, now I'm struggling, right? And it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot by trying to go too fast. And I would say by far and away the most common mistake on all pushes that I see is that they just go too fast. They outrun their cooling, they outrun their stream, they outrun their visibility if there is any, and they outrun their backup man, and they end up fighting hose going down the hallway. So the other nice thing about this is that by doing so, by offloading that hose and then knowing I've got enough line now to be able to get all the way down the hallway, he's able to drop on the line and come down with him. And then when the nozzleman makes the fire room or rooms, the backup man's able to instantly bump off first search. And that's, you know, again, meeting that mission of getting our eyes and our hands as close to the seat of the fire as fast as possible in order to be able to locate and remove trapped occupants. Like that's what it's about right there, is confining that fire. The nozzle is confining the fire, and the faster we can search, like nobody can bump past us in this hallway here. It's not like somebody's going to get ahead of us and search in that hallway. So this guy, number 2 on the line, is going to be the first person available to be able to get hands on a victim. So that nozzleman makes the turn into the room. As soon as I'm sure he's got it, I'm rolling off and I'm starting to search instantly. All right, renting a space versus owning it. So this is what I'm talking about with the hit and move. We're renting the space, and there's a time, like, you know, I did a write-up about this a little while ago. Like there's a time in your life to rent, you know, like there's a good analogy there. But there's also a time to own. And when we go into a building, like it's not, when I hit something and I rent that space, I do have to keep that mindset that it is returning on that space. We're gonna watch this video here. This is owning the building, okay? And when this fire is well involved in this room and extending into this room in front of it, they're 2 separate rooms. And then this doorway is the one that I really like to pay attention to here, because this doorway is basically 3 rooms removed from the fire room. And you can see like there's a pretty good amount of smoke coming out of the back of the doorway. And you can see as soon as the nozzle opens, like the nozzle opens and starts working on this room, and you can see this doorway turn into an intake. Don't mind this guy, he's just painting the eaves so we don't get an attic fire. But you can see what happens in all the spaces behind the nozzle. As soon as the nozzle opens, watch this doorway here. Right here. Boom, see the nozzle opens, now watch this doorway. Everything turns back in, it's sucking that air in that back doorway. So everything behind the nozzle, which this door is behind the nozzle, that front door. Now he doesn't have water in the fire yet. He's got water in the first room. He's knocking down the first room, and then boom, second room's knocked down. But the whole time, that air behind the nozzle is coming in behind him, and that everywhere else around him. If there is life in there, they're getting increased oxygen levels. If there's folks searching, they're searching in better conditions. That nozzle is owning that building. And then as soon as they knock down that room gets washed down, nozzle out the window, start to vent. It just makes that building calm down dramatically in a few seconds. Like that's not temporary. That's not, you know, like water in the window and then moving to another door and letting the thing come back. Like that's just owning it straight up. So again, we watch a good example of confining that protecting the interior exposure here. So water's coming in this first room, and watch this room right here, the room that's well involved. Nothing's happening to it because water's not actually getting on the seat of the fire, right? Water hasn't gotten into this room, but you see as soon as it does, it doesn't take much, just like UL says. That's why that rebound happens. So if you need a good example to show people about why rebound happens, it's because of that. You're pouring a bunch of water in this first room, and this room is still well involved, and it's going to keep rebounding because that's the seat of the fire. Okay, here's another one. This is one of my favorite videos. So skip ahead here. Bunch of chunky, nasty smoke coming out the front door. Nozzle goes in, drops to their knee. She turns left and starts ripping water, and you see instantly this door, boom, clears up. Now that living room and the 2 bedrooms on the back side of the house, they're being protected and they're being cleaned out right away. Stream punches through the kitchen window. That kitchen was getting really hot. It was. It was a hot kitchen. And what was really going on in there was that kitchen, there was a header in between the kitchen and the living room. That header was keeping a lot of the heat and a lot of the fire in that. So it was coming from this utility room, extending the kitchen. The kitchen was just, cooking all the way to the floor. It was about ready to fail those windows. As you can tell, that stream knocked them out pretty easy. And that header was kind of keeping the heat, and it just, that whole living room was just smoke slammed to the floor. And as soon as she opened up that nozzle, it was like, I own it. Everything behind me, you're good now. I'm going to own this while I keep going. And as she was working this kitchen here, the utility room, there was her stream bumped the door shut, and it actually started to kind of come back a little bit until she opened up the door and finished off with the push. But you can see the whole back side of the house is clean. So during a push, our nozzles are hydraulically ventilating the building on the way to the fire room. That's it right there. So when we get in that building, we want to own the space, okay? Wet surfaces prevent flashover. In order for a room, in order for a space to flash over, it has to, it works from the top down. The heat and the heat and the smoke take the shape of the box. The ceiling heats up, the upper walls start to heat up, it banks down. The last thing to go is the floor. That floor starts to kind of take a beating, and then eventually that smoke and the mid-level lights off, and then the floor is kind of the last thing to go. It kind of like boom, it meets itself when flashover happens. So our greed-based extinguishment, again, like Dennis says, is water in that upper register and then raining down, and that droplet fall through and making the floor wet has immense value in preventing flashover and in aiding in eliminating smoke contribution. So this is something that Kyle Romagus and I have talked a bunch of times about. It's something that John Tanaka, one of the first guys in that slide when I talked about like my lineage and my learning, impressed upon me. He worded it a little bit differently. Kyle and I have been talking a lot about this, is fuel problems versus pressure problems. And the way that Tanaka taught me when I was initially starting out was, there's seat flame and there's gas flame. And I think it's important to kind of understand the difference between them. So we've got surface cooling, we've got gas cooling, and ideally in a greed-based extinguishing model, we are doing both. So when we surface cool, we are stopping that production of smoke. The gas cooling is achieved when we sufficiently cool everything, and then we get that droplet fall through. We're cooling some of those gas, and it's not like a pure gas cooling extinguishment method, but we're doing a really good job of cooling a lot of those gases, and then getting that contraction, that lift. So the gas problem, right? That gas flame, like Tanaka used to teach me about, was like you've got your seat flame, which is the seat flame is very bright. It's it's the seat of the fire that's burning. It's the cleaner burning. It's very bright, and that's the part that really drives back. Like when you knock it down, gas flame is very like dirtier. It's darker. It's very like it's a dirty looking burn, right? And it's the stuff, all that smoke that's burning, that's extending and tumbling. It's kind of, a lot of times it'll be kind of intermittent and fire rolling through it and kind of flickering in and out. That's that gas flame. Okay, that seat flame is back further deeper. It's the seat. He used to say that the seat flame can extend 1.5 times the height of the ceiling is a method that he used to use. And, just kind of like anecdotally, I've found that to be pretty true, that a lot of that really like clean burning flame will extend. You'll see it kind of extend, but it can't go, it's not going to roll all the way up to the living room from a bedroom. Like you knock back that gas flame, and that bright stuff that's wanting to jump back out of the room, it can only go so far. So that's the stuff that that seat flame does not go out until the water gets on it. Some places like hallways and stairwells are pure gas firefighting. There's like, especially downstairs, your stream isn't getting to the fuel in most downstairs pushes. Like it's all this gas, this burning smoke that's coming up at you. So I think it's important to understand that, that's why it's really important on basement fires and stuff like that, to try to get on those on the level with the basement. If there's an exterior door to get in, that's why it's really important, because that downstairs push, even though we have to be ready for something like that, it's really we're fighting that gas flame that's coming up the stairwell at us, with an inability to actually get the water on the stuff that's burning down below us until, again, that nozzle's line of sight. So, just something worth thinking about with the downstairs. So here's an example of that gas flame. Gets pulled away, so it's just dark, nasty. It looks dirty. It's a dirty burn, right? And you can kind of see this more intense, consistent, brighter glow down at the end of the hallway. That's the seat of the fire down there, right? It's not like you need to like split this up and spend time dwelling on it in a fire, but I think it's good to understand, just from a basic perspective, that it's that seat flame, that stuff, that bright stuff. You can expect when you knock out the dark stuff, that bright stuff is going to want to come back when your stream is not getting through that doorway, or it's not getting to the seat. That stuff's going to keep coming back, which can actually aid you in locating it sometimes, but that's why the rebound happens. And here it is again. So there's a seat of the fire, the door is going to get removed, and the whole ceiling will take off here. I think this is a video credit to Casey Corrigan here. All that smoke in the upper register burning. And that stuff goes quick. So again, that heat, that fire, that smoke, it all takes the shape of the box. You see that nozzle, it takes a few seconds for it to get a hold. That thing wants to keep coming back, keep coming back, because that stream isn't actually getting in the doorway there, and it wants to keep coming back out that door, out the doorway. So this is a push upstairs. The guy's coming from the kind of lower left part of the screen, and the fire is down the hallway to the right. And as he comes up, you can see he's got the nozzle open the whole time, but you can see down the hallway here, it's just not, it's not going away. Comes. So watch, you can see this stuff. The water's not even remotely getting on the seat of the fire, right? And so it's not that the push is doing nothing. Like he's sealing it essentially at this doorway here. Now, if his stream was getting up like there, it starts to actually do some good. But until he makes that turn, he's basically just making this space out here okay for himself. And then once he makes a turn, now, okay, now the hallway is going to get better, but that thing's still coming out that room. It's still coming out of the room. The thing's not, it's going to keep coming out until he makes the push and gets an angle to get water actually in the doorway. He does a good job of pausing. Okay, offload some hose. And then continue his journey. And you can just see the whole time that thing is exhausting out over his head. Ian Bennett sitting next to me, one of the other West Coast fire training guys here. He said it was interesting to see the steam, everything go away as soon as he makes the turn. So that's that confinement happening. At first, he's just confining the stairwell because it's not now. If this was a grade A push, he would have been getting water into. He would have taken the outside angle as much as he could in that stairwell instead of just ripping water straight ahead of him into the wall straight ahead of him. He would have been kind of painting the inside of that doorway. Forecasting where he needs to get to and trying to get water around that corner as much as possible on the way up. So you kind of paint the inside edge of that door, boom, 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 on the way around the corner. But it's fine by that water going straight ahead of him. He was making the immediate area that he's in okay, but doing nothing to the hallway. And then once he makes the turn, now the hallway now he's making the hallway better, but that fire room nothing's happening to the fire room. Until he gets further down the hallway. Now he gets an angle in the fire room. Now he makes the fire room better once water gets in the door. There it goes. All right. So use the reach of our stream. We want to use the long angles of the building and take the corners high to the outside like I was talking about. High above your head, work down range as far as the stream will punch. And then you don't, like I said earlier, you don't want to just open up and go. This is a fantastic video here that shows exactly how we should make the push here. Another thing you can see is the stream reach here. You can see her stream is going to get eaten up before it reaches the fire room, okay? And this is a pretty long span here. This is 20, 25 feet or so back to the fire room there. But her stream is, there you go, start high to low. We're not moving forward yet. Take the shape of the box. And this is where the squashed O comes in. Boom, squashed O's. We're sealing off that fire room, but you can see her stream is getting eaten up before it even reaches the fire room here. Okay, past the threshold. Come back up high. Boom, 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 and then back on the fire room. We were pretty stoked if you guys can't hear that. I don't know if you guys can hear it or not, but hopefully you can because we were screaming for it. That was a good push. All right, you don't want to fight fire in a phone booth if you don't have to. Okay, this guy right here on the top of the screen, again, headers and just natural compartmentalization of the building do a great job of separating us from a world of history in there. And this guy, he gets right up to the door. You can hear everybody yelling up high, up high, up high, because he started flowing about right here. And nothing's happening because the stream's down low. And he's just lasering the stream waist level in the back wall. You got to start up high, and you don't want to start in that phone booth if you don't have to. You don't want to be right up on the thing. Use the reach of your stream if possible. And it wasn't until the stream came back up high, you start working downrange because all of that stuff is so hot up there. It's all burning. So you have stuff in your immediate vicinity that's on fire. You want to be able to knock that out and then work progressively back deeper into the building. Side by side here, we got a couple of different views at stream reach. This guy, you can see his stream's getting eaten up right in that doorway there. His stream's not even hitting that back wall. Which that happens. That's why we push though, because that stream is, he's on the gas, he's getting closer to it, he's extending the reach of his stream by moving. But just that initial spot he was at, when he starts moving, you can see his stream just getting eaten up as soon as it goes through that doorway there. Right here. That's 170 gallons a minute right there. Now, granted, he's pretty low, but as soon as he crosses into that next threshold, you'll see him start back up high. So every time I occupy a new space, back up high, restart it, back down low. Cross into the new room, stream comes high, take the shape of the box, pause, back down low, reach out and start looking for that next space. We've got about 20 feet of effective reach in 1,000 degrees. So we want to use all of that if possible, but understand that, you know, there's a good chance that we're going to end up with our streams going to get eaten up. And that's why as we make that push, we'll talk about in a little bit about how to differentiate, you know, winning and losing. So every time I cross into a new room, I start back up high and then reach down range before moving forward again. So I pause in every new room to wash it down real good, move into it. This is my Uncle Jim here. I grew up with my grandparents and my blind Uncle Jim, and I learned a lot from Uncle Jim. He's the happiest person I've ever met in my entire life. He went blind in high school, and he is no bad day. There are no bad days for Uncle Jim. And Uncle Jim used a cane, and turns out being on the nozzle, making push a lot of times is akin to what I've seen with Uncle Jim using his cane around. So you're really using stream sounds and stuff to tell you about doors and windows and obstacles. And like I said earlier, if you get blown off course, just shut down and reset if possible. So here's a video here. You guys, let me know in the chat if you can hear the video. Hopefully you can. So you can hear the stream when it gets into the room and when it's on the wall. Nozzleman gets blown off course here. They miss the room, they go too far. They shut down. Okay, we got a little bit of a knock on it, so we know it's gonna come back. So we're just, as soon as I shut the stream down, if I get blown off course, I shut it down, I listen. Where is it coming from? Look, listen, feel, all that stuff. Oh, shoot, the fire's over here. Reorient yourself and then start your push again. It's not a big deal. Just click the share computer sound button, so hopefully that means you guys can hear. There we go. So you hear us saying, get to the right, get to the right. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear this thing or not. I want to make sure that we connect. I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world, so if you guys hear it, give me a shout. Make sure that the stream sounds come through on this thing. All right, so here we go. Coat all the surfaces. This is a guy in a big room, and then he's working back to a little room here. Okay. And sorry, I'm getting distracted here. In this big room, we got to understand again that we got to take the shape of the box with our watching. So that stream is going all over that big room, and then he zeroes in on the fire room. Boom, right there. Now he starts moving forward. So it takes a while in those bigger rooms. It takes a while for those bigger rooms for you to actually get a hold of them, because they accumulate so much volume of smoke and so much surface heat. It's not just a quick jab and go. It's sit there for a second, really watch that, and really let those drop, all those drops fall back to you. You want to be able to, you can imagine if there's like furniture all over the place, and they're like, I want all this stuff just raining down on that furniture. I want it getting wet all over the place, and then I zero in on the fire room and I start working towards it. The more surfaces that are cool, the more contraction occurs. All right, so here we got a guy, he's just gonna do like a pencil, essentially. And this, again, this is not a big fire. This is just a little room fire, but you see he hits it. And there's nothing, he didn't do anything. Again, this is why you can get, little things to work on you can get, cute things to work on little fires, but when you go to those bigger fires, those same things don't work, okay? Heat takes the full shape of the box. There's a difference between contents and structure fires. There's a little contents fire. It didn't take his lunch, but 2 rooms going at the end of the hallway, and it's a different story on that. You're not getting to the fire room on that. So you can see he missed a lot of heat on the approach, which means we limit the amount of actual gas contraction that happens. Sealing off the flow path. This is really important here. And you can see 2 very good examples of sealing off the flow path. And this is the inside look of that confinement, ventilating the interior spaces here. So both of these, this one especially on the right-hand side. Okay, look at this air moving with him. That's reversing the flow path. Look at everything behind. Boom. Same thing here. Everything's going ahead with the nozzle. That means that you're winning. That means that surfaces are contracting, your surfaces are cooling, gas is contracting right there. And your nozzle's just moving a bunch of air. The more that nozzle moves, the more water is bouncing around, cooling stuff off. Once you cool the space you're in, start to seal off the inside of the space that the heat's coming from. Open spaces like living rooms, like kind of big ceiling wall, and then work your way down range. Make sure you sweep the floor good every once in a while. But then in like hallways and bedrooms and stuff, that squash dough is really king, okay? The squash dough in like a living room area, you end up with limited coverage. But then you start to tighten it up in the tighter areas, and the squash dough is works really well. All right. Match your nozzle movement to take the shape of the compartment. Hallways tighten up, squash dough, living room, stack Z's, high to low. So bigger spaces, and like this kind of, treat them a little bit more like commercial spaces. Boom, 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 high to low, boom, 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 boom. And maybe do it a few times in that living room. Same space. And then I zero in on the door that I'm going in case squash dough. That's where that seals off that doorway. Get in the hallway, squash dough, seals off that hallway. Get towards the bedroom, squash dough. It tightens up as this compartmentalization gets tighter. In big rooms, we want significant coverage of fuels locally, right? I got a large area. I want a lot of fall through locally. In those tighter areas, I'm going to take care of them because of less surface area. I'm going to take care of them faster, and I want to reach down the spans of those tighter areas like the hallways and stuff to get to the next space. So here's just some scribbled drawings that I made of what an example of that would look like. So here's a big room, come down, boom, 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 come back up, boom, 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 boom. I'm just doing stack Z's in that living room, boom, boom, boom. And then I start getting in, if I got fire coming out of that doorway right there, squash dough in the doorway, seals it off, gets water in the doorway. Okay, same thing here. Boom, 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 boom. Start getting water wherever that glow is coming from, that seat flame is coming from, that's where my squash dough is going to go. Okay, scrape the stuff off the top of the ceiling, squash dough on the glow. Don't just take the stream and just drop it straight down, because I'm not cooling any of that upper stuff. I'm just cooling straight down, boom, and I drop it. And I'm not doing anything to cool locally either. I'm not getting good droplet fall through. I want to make myself, I want to soak my helmet, and I want to soak all the stuff around me as I reach out. Okay, hallway, back and forth across the ceiling, just cool locally. And then I start doing squash dough, sweep the floor, and then start getting the water in the doorway from as far away as I can. When I get to rooms, I get to the fire room door, pause at the fire room door, stream stays high. Again, just letting it go all over the ceiling, and then come back down a few, you know, and then the bedrooms, I'll sweep the floor 3, 4, 5 times, come back up, keep it up high, sweep the floor a couple times. Like, I wash the bedrooms down really well before I go to move in them, because the floor is hot in those bedrooms that have been flashed over. Any space that's been flashed over, the floor is really hot. Okay, and then take this picture down here, take that high outside angle, and as you can see the angle in the doorway, I get a little bit of a view into the room there. So I'm going to kind of draw up and down in the doorway, and then as my angle opens up, my pattern opens up. Boom, boom, boom. So here's from the victim's point of view what ceiling looks like. This is the victim down low on the floor, and then this is the victim perspective in the room adjacent to the fire room with the push coming up the stairs. In both of these, you can see a lot of gas movement. Or sorry, a lot of air movement. You know, the air movement across the floor here on the right-hand side. And then same thing in the room over here. So there's a bunch of air coming across the floor. And then in the room over here, when that push happens, we're not getting a bunch of steam into this room like Gus, Michael Gustafson, who's sitting in the corner here filming. He's not getting hurt. Like, things are getting better in that room, and we're ahead of the nozzle, above the nozzles. It's coming up the stairs. Like, that's what the victim finds. That's it right there. Things are getting good for them. Swedish fire nerd Lars Axelsson, definitely go and reach out to this guy. But he, with his permission, I was able to use these videos here. I really appreciate it. They're just a great thing that happens with our stream. So here's our straight stream. The point in which that stream actually hits the ceiling or the surfaces, it turns into like a broken, you know, kind of a fog-ish stream, and it has the effect of a fog stream, like that positive pressure ahead of it at the point of impact. So here's a video that I just find this stuff fascinating and nerd out on. But you can see this is why sealing happens at the point of impact, which is why you want to use the reach of your stream. So all this, you can see all the negative pressure gets created here, the positive, and it just kind of turns this room over, and it doesn't allow this stuff to come out of the door with a straight stream. Okay, and you can see an illustration of why this happens. It's why, like, Ray McCormick and all these guys have been talking about the hitting the king stud or the door frame on the way to the fire room. Beyond just getting water into the fire room, it actually seals it off really well. And you know, it's hard to actually like feel that when you're making a push and zero visibility. Like, the whole goal is get water into the fire room. And by making that my goal to seal off the fire room, and by trying to like seal off that door with my stream, I'm gonna bounce water off that king stud or that door frame there. So this is what's happening. I'm not just gonna sit there and like aim for that door frame because I can't see it most of the time, but I'm gonna try to just get water into that doorway, and I'm gonna accidentally hit the door frame and have that happen. And then here's a fog stream at the bottom. Over pressurization, the negative is actually behind the nozzle here. So now, instead of the positive negative interface happening in the room, it's happening at the nozzle, and you can see there's just a tremendous amount of over pressurization that happens. Appreciate it, Lars. Thank you. Okay, so big rooms, big bang. Big rooms accumulate a lot of smoke and heat, and we need to cool them prior to the smoke lighting off. It's much easier to keep these things bottled up than it is to regain control after it's lost. So this room's you're gonna see here's a tick footage and then naked eye footage of this fire here. We're gonna let this thing go for this guy and then let him regain control after all the smoke lights off. So big room, smoke all lights off, starts flowing, and you can see it takes a minute to get a hold of this thing. Still, there's a lot of heat. Okay, now he's got it kind of knocked back into the room. Now he can get the stream in the room and start working his way in there, but it takes a few seconds, and it's always easier on the front end of it to keep that smoke I got turbulent, nasty smoke. That means stuff's hot. I'm going to cool it, not let it have a chance to do that. Okay, so we're looking for cooling. We should not advance until the space we want to move into is cooled. Fire doesn't go out for two reasons: not enough GPM, or the water isn't getting in the right spot. So common reasons it's not going out is because of a shielded seat, like our water's not getting on the seat, which opening the nozzle straight down, or headers where they're blocking our stream from getting inside the doorway. But those two things are very, very important to keep in mind. It's either not in the right spot, or I don't have enough water in the right spot. As you can see, her start to flow. And then her stream's going to bump that door closed. Now the water's, that door has a window in it. Her stream's not getting in the right spot, and this thing starts to rebound on her. Gets the line down. And you can see on the exterior here, because these are synced up, the fire starts to come back. The water's not hitting in the right spot.
She's getting on the seat right now.
You can hear her stream. It's not getting into the room. It's the wall. So you should key in on that. Cut down, reorient yourself, and keep going. The room's starting to light back off again until open up the door. Now her stream's in the fire room. Now it's out. So if you're not getting the effect you want, what we should be getting is, I should see that flow path stop or reverse. I should see darkening down, and I should be getting cooling. Okay, here's a down. So before I start going downstairs, get water up in the living space and then back downstairs. It's really hot up there. You can see it calms the exhaust down. I don't get a full reversal of the flow path, but I get a good intake from the bottom, and you can tell stuff's calming down. I'm having a good effect. I can keep going. This is what lets me know I can. So anytime I have air moving with me, contraction happening, lift happening a little bit, sometimes a little bit, sometimes a lot, but I'm getting the ability to be able to move forward now. This one. There's a lot. This big living room's filling up with a lot of smoke. The smoke's going to kind of light off a little bit. That back wall is going to get hot first. You can see all the smoke lighting off over here. So he hit it, and now it's starting to come back on him because you didn't have the seat. So if rebound happens, keep on the gas, okay? All right. We're gonna move into part two. So if you guys want to take a restroom break here real quick, that'd be a good time. I'll get this thing fired up here and we'll get. I don't know what I did. All right. All right. So we're gonna finish up with some technical stuff. How to make. We talked a lot about getting the weeds about like why to push, when to push, how to push. So now we're gonna talk about well, actually how to push. We're gonna talk about the technical side of things. So this is my oldest here. His name is Nolan, and this is his first stripe year in jiu-jitsu. You know, just a little shameless plug here. If you want to be good at nozzle work, if you want to get better as a firefighter from the nozzle, I highly recommend walk your way down to your local jiu-jitsu gym and get in there and start rolling. For one, it's super humbling. But for two, the positions that you get involuntarily forced into by somebody as they squish you down into the mat are turns out they're pretty beneficial for being on the nozzle. So your hips and your ankles and your knees and your shoulders and everything else get used to kind of getting mashed on. And also you get it, you know, jiu-jitsu is a lot like or any, you know, wrestling, grappling, any of that stuff, any combat sports, kind of like nozzle work where it's like, you know, 6 minutes of absolute intense fury, you know, like you just get after it for a few minutes and it's just boom, it's a sprint. So it's a good way to build your gas tank and then also just kind of get used to, you know, you're enduring physical suffering while keeping your mental composure. So it's not like a, you know, a workout with a barbell or something like that where you can like step away from the barbell for a second. Like if you try to step away from somebody, then they're just gonna, you know, crush you and rip your arms off and beat you with them. So that's my shameless plug, but we're gonna get technical here, just like Nolan did to earn his first stripe. So as you can tell, that's his patented Bonniefield game face there. Second. All right, so train to take advantage of the small window fires. These are two fires that happened in Everett, and they're just two great examples. A little bit of a, you know, department brag here, like, you know, proud of the guys and gals that I work with. And one thing that I love is that there's a real big emphasis placed on what we call small window fires, which are these kind of fires where they really have a very tight window in which things could either you know, end up with us, like I said, putting ladder pipes up and calling this thing a loser, or making the most out of this thing and stopping it in its tracks. And both of these fires, the one on the left resulted in, you know, two little twin girls being pulled out of the bottom unit here, because the engine company made the first engine made a fantastic knockdown, followed up by a incredible push into that building. And then this one on the right, a lot of people were saved on this fire right here, hanging out all different corners of that building. So, you know, there's this whole saying about bad players don't take much seriously. Like, we've all got them in our fire departments. It's just a fact of life. Bad players don't take much seriously. And a lot of times bad players were average, good, or great players at one point in their career, but they got bitter, and you know, they got salty, and so on and so forth. So you know, you could go on for an hour about that by itself. But average players take games seriously. Games are fires, right? And you know, I think a lot of the average folks that want to show up and they want to do a good job at fires. And then you've got your good players that take practice, like they take training, and they obviously take fires seriously. But if you this is just me. I think if you want to be a great player, and if you view yourself as a great player, you need to take a holistic approach. And really, your responsibility as a great player, quote unquote, is to take complex stuff and distill it down, and then relay it to your good, your average, your bad players on your team. You know, if you view yourself as a great player, you need to take, like this says, academics, nutrition, warm-ups, individual work, weight room, all like if you view yourself as a great firefighter, as a great nozzle firefighter, like you need to take the body mechanics, the water mapping, the science behind the fire behavior. You need to take your nutrition, you need to take your weight training, you need to take your conditioning, like all this stuff. It's a total package. And you know, I really do think that you take a holistic approach, and not in a braggadocious way to like look at what I'm doing, but in like I'm out here, I'm going to push the envelope and try to take all this stuff seriously so I can distill it down and hopefully relay to my good players, the average players, and so on and so forth, so that I can help pass some of this stuff along, so that our department as a whole can show up to these fires and take advantage of these small window fires and capitalize on them. Because I think that's a hallmark of a good fire department, is they're able to actually, you know, any fire department can just show up and blow, you know, shoot their deck gun at this thing, but like, you know, can you show up? Can you knock this thing back? Can you finish it off with a push inside and make the grabs that are in there before they expire? Like that's you know, that takes a, you know, a lot of information being distilled down by great players and passing it on. And, you know, all the great players and good players, everybody showing up and executing. So why do the details matter? Like you hear people, you know, all this stuff, it's, you know, you just go in there, it's dark and it's, you know, boom, and you don't need to know all this stuff. Well, I on small fires, again, you can get a lot of stuff to work.
Okay, go, dude.
Fire.
All right, ready, buddy? Yep. Go.
This is a big fire. This is a real fire.
Going.
Nice stream blazer into the back. It's not getting any water into the fire room. It really gets right up into the fire. I'm just going straight ahead. You can hear it. Like, you don't even have to see. You can close your eyes. You know exactly what he's doing. Listen to the change when he gets into the fire. Now you can hear it. Another guy's yelling at me to get out of the way. But you can hear it straight in the fire. Okay, what about this guy? This is what we're going to talk about here for the next little bit. This is pure hamstring curl, all the way. Now, did it work? Yeah, it worked. It worked for, you know, a good 6 feet. Now add furniture. Now add, you know, 2 rooms, 3 rooms of fire where you've got to spend 90 seconds to 2 minutes knocking this thing down. Like, that's not sustainable over the long term. What was that? Yeah, and he was a big guy too. So you got, I mean, and that was a 7/8 flowing, 160 gallons a minute, like or 165 gallons a minute. Like you take this and you start adding different variables, and it's like, well, yeah, the poor body mechanics work there, and you could just say, cool, drop the mic, walk out. But the little details matter the more severe the fire gets. And you want to, again, keep beating on this, but you want to capitalize on those small window fires, and you can't do it without the little details.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, so John Danaher, he's a jiu-jitsu black belt, one of the most legendary coaches out there. He has done just an immense amount, especially with the leg lock game and stuff like that. If you're a jiu-jitsu guy, but this quote is so applicable to the fire service. You want to make faster decisions, limit your options. I'll just read the underlined stuff here, but the whole quote is fantastic. A simple and effective way to increase your speed of decision-making is limit your options per scenario. If you have 1,000 options, you'll inevitably slow down. You have 1 or 2 strong attacks per scenario, and the decision-making process becomes very fast and easy. Of course, it's no good to make bad decisions quickly. They have to be good ones. To accomplish this, I suggest researching the highest percentage moves. If you have a small set of well-trained high percentage moves in each of the main scenarios we regularly find ourselves in, you will immediately notice decision-making is faster and more decisive. So, I mean, I'm a huge believer of that. Limit your decisions. Not every fire is different, okay? So with body mechanics. So body mechanics drive the water mapping, and we're going to talk about high percentage body mechanics. Ultimately, the end of the day, the thing that matters is the water mapping, like where the water is going. But you can't have good water mapping without very good body mechanics. Excellent water mapping uses the reach, like we talked about, to coat all the surfaces. If the body mechanics wear down, balance becomes a problem. The first thing to suffer is stream movement. That is true every time. Like as soon as somebody starts to fatigue, as soon as somebody starts to lose their balance, as soon as they start to slip around, the first thing you see it every single time is their stream goes still, because their body's just focused on stay upright. Like it's just, how you're wired is your body needs to stay upright. You're not going to like slip all over the place and have this fantastic water application. Your stream is just going to go stock still, as your brain is just like, I'm trying to stay upright. Or if you're bouncing off of stuff and you feel like you're off balance. The pace of the attack should be slower and more methodical. The best pushes that I've seen, the best ones, are usually the slowest. Again, this allows the back-end firefighters to properly load hose and let the advance go uninterrupted. We talked about a pause at every new space. A great fire attack, again, is more for the victims and not as much for us. Like it is for us, but it's more for the victims. So we get lost in translation sometimes when we're talking as firefighters, like, well, I can withstand this, or whatever. Like it's not about you, it's about them. Okay. So when you're creating a system, start with the probable fires and probable layouts in the area. We base a lot of what we do on our probable single family residence layouts, and then you build out from there. And turns out, it stays applicable pretty much throughout. You work to limit decisions. So our like base level fire attack, like if I was going to guess, if I showed up on shift tomorrow and go on a fire, what's going to happen, I'm going to open up the door. I'm going to see a bunch of smoke coming out. I'm going to hit that corner. I'm going to shut down, move up into it, and I'm just going to finish it off with a push, 10 to 15 feet. Like that's the most common operation that we do, okay? So because of that, we drill that a lot. We base a lot of what we do on that operation. High percentage body mechanics and attacks get us to the interior doorways faster, which is for final extinguishment. High percentage body mechanics. And what I mean by high percentage is they check a lot of boxes. We get water all around us. They keep us upright. They allow us efficiency of movement without fatiguing. There's a lot of different things that go into what makes high percentage, and we'll talk about that here. But high percentage body mechanics are efficient. They keep us nice and slow, safe. They allow water application all around. And then when we build a system, systems can be customized. Like over time, you take a system, you implement a system in your department, whatever that system is for your fire attack, how you move hose, how you fight fire, all that. if you create that system over time, you can adapt it, you can add things in, but they have to fit the greater system as a whole. And this is like a good long game strategy for your department that keeps, you know, your department from like ebbing and flowing with every new little wind and tide that comes in, because it's got to fit your system. Okay, and if your system is well built and it's it's got a very well defined mission of what you're trying to accomplish with your fire attack, then things, you can actually evaluate things as they come in. It's not, well, I like this, I like that. It's, does it fit the system? Does it fit what we do? And if you have a system, then you can actually forecast what the guy ahead of you in zero visibility is doing. This is just an example. This is myself and my buddy Brent Grace. That's what's behind me.
Like good! Forward!
So Fields talks a lot about common terminology and all this stuff. And the reason why he's talking about that is because it allows Brendan and I to communicate just like that, where he knows what I'm doing, I know what he's doing. I don't have to look at him. We can communicate very succinctly and, you know, and end up with a a push that goes off, you know, very smoothly down the hallway, right? And it gives you something to drill off of. So that's an example. It doesn't have to be that system, but just when you build your system out, be very intentional about every little point within the system. So talking about body mechanics and position. So we'll talk about the clamp slide here. The clamp or clamp slide, it's a very effective way to move, absorb nozzle reaction because you're pinning it to the ground. So here's the video playing on the side there. You can move well from it. You can shut the line down and go well, start moving forward well. It does need a little bit higher level of coordination from your backup, because as you start to move forward, if they're not feeding you hose aggressively, then you end up kind of crawling your way, like the nozzle will suck down and down and down as you're not able to fully shoot your hip through. So it's really important that you have, you know, a well-practiced team there. So it can be difficult for people with flexibility problems, and then you just need to remember to keep your eyes up while advancing. A lot of people, you know, just kind of get in this like robotic seesaw motion where their eyes are down a lot. So you got to remember the other thing about it is it's a wider profile. So I'll show you what I use a little bit more. Like I use the clamp and the clamp slide, you know, but as I go on, I'll show you what I use more often. Talk about the Camella lock or the lock off from just a stationary water application. It's a very strong position. Great absorbing nozzle reaction from straight ahead or from slight angles. You're not going to get as you know, as broad of or you're not going to be able to get as aggressive side to side with it without turning your whole body. Keeps good upright posture. We'll talk about when you start to push with it. It uses leg drive instead of arms and biceps. So one of the downsides is you can't sound, or, you know, I've seen people do this and then add a sounding component too. Awesome. But just by itself, you're not sounding. There's a little bit of forward lean, which the forward lean can lead to technical breakdowns. Like you start slipping around a little bit, and it's also very wide. You're very wide positionally. So you can get into some of these tighter spaces, you know, the tighter like hallways, or you get in somebody's house and they got a lot of clutter and stuff like that. It can get, you know, a little bit much. You're pretty wide. So, and then it's harder to hit aggressive side to side without turning your whole body. So stationary hit, this we call the high hip hit and move. And with the high hip hit and move, essentially you're in what we're going to talk about in a little bit, which is a knee walk position. You're just moving forward, and you can sound and move into that space. I really like this. It's kind of become my go-to. Like if I got stuff that's driving me down to where I have to crawl, I can't like just move, you know, I have to actually crawl or be low, then I will use this kind of a position where I'm basically in my knee walk position. I'm just not flowing water. So I can absorb nozzle reaction from multiple different angles well. I can get water all around me. My eyes are up, my posture's up, my weight's back. I'm also in a narrower stance so that as I'm moving through people's houses, I like to be able to kind of reach out and get stuff out of the way and move stuff around a little bit, which this is very good for. And it allows me to probe with that left or my left foot. I can extend it out and I can find like couches and stuff before I slam into them with my whole body. I can find stuff and I'm using it like my blind uncle uses his cane to find stuff before he bumps into it. So downside is, you know, you can fatigue your biceps a little bit, like you're holding it with your upper body. It's a stationary hold with your upper body while you're moving forward. So if your backup man is less effective, it can definitely, you know, definitely you can wear out a little bit faster. Like just the Camella lock or the lock off, if you have like a really weak backup person or somebody who's very, you know, they're just doing a poor job, or there's a long span in between you and your backup person, the Camella lock or the lock off makes up for that a little bit more because you're clamping down on that line and it's a very strong position, but it's got some downsides with how limiting it is side to side. That's it. Puts it down, he moves forward, and then back on the legs. You can take the same knee walk and you can keep moving. The same knee walk that he's doing here, and you can keep moving with the nozzle closed as well. You just do the same. So a high hip grip or high hip grip, you know, I call it the high hip grip because I found just a little bit like sometimes when I call it the hip grip with some of our recruits and stuff, they'll like actually hold the line on their hip. And if you get the line on your hip, it's kind of all like bicep. And so with the high hip grip, I'll kind of scoot back a little bit here. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. But this is my go-to. This is my favorite position. This is my go-to. Like this is what I use a lot. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I can without moving my body much at all, I can get water all the way around me, left, right, front, back, it doesn't matter. So when I work my way into a living room, like I remember I had a fire a while back where we were pushing in and the wall that I pushed past, like that had the front door on it, I pushed through the front door. I had to like fight my way up on the stairs and push all the way in. And then that wall behind me, as that air came in with my nozzle, I'm focused on the fire ahead of me, and that whole back wall lit off pretty good, and I had to turn around. I didn't do a good job of turning back around and hitting it. If you have to turn your entire body around to hit it, it's just more energy expenditure, and it's more disorienting. You end up when you try to get back on you know, like the hallway or whatever that's burning or the room that's burning, it's hard to get back on it if you have to turn all the way around. So if you're able to just real quick, boom, hit it, and then get back on it, you're going to be just more efficient with your movement. I like that it's got a sounding component, you know, or being able to feel out ahead of me, both, you know, not just for holes in the floor, like that. Again, it's for, are there, you know, couches? Is there debris? Is there, you know, change in grade? Like you go drop down into the living room. Like I've had that before where you're pushing and all of a sudden there's just a one-step drop in the living room and you're boom, and it causes you to fall, like crumple down on the floor because you weren't anticipating a step there. Or going upstairs, like you hit the step, you're like, what the heck is this? Like you can find stuff with that foot out front. As your you know, your upper body, it's kind of like rubbing your belly and patting your head is essentially what pushing is like. My lower body is doing stuff while my upper body is focused on where the water is going. So if I can kind of probe with my lower body and find stuff before I hit it, it's going to help keep me upright and keep my brain from going like emergency, stop the hands from moving, you know, keep yourself upright. So great traction in slippery environments. This is the bonus of being weight back, is that your weight transfer goes up and then out, and then up and then out. You're not leaning forward and extending yourself laterally. When that water's falling down, floors get very, very slippery. And that, again, that traction, just, you can expend a lot of energy just trying to have traction moving forward. See with this, here's the key here. Drive off of this toe. If that toe is dragging along for the ride, we call them dead toes. If that toe is just dragging along for the ride, then what you're doing is you're actually pulling with your knee pad, and you're pulling with something that wasn't meant to pull off. You want to drive off that back toe. Everything is driving off the back toe, and what that does, that engages your whole posterior chain. When you're pulling with your knee, it's basically a hamstring curl, and you're just falling ahead. You end up with a lot of forward lean as you fatigue, which it just compounds itself. It causes you to slip more. Fade to the outside, start painting the inside corner. And then here you go. You can go water over that way. You can go water over that way. It doesn't matter. All you're doing is pivoting on your back foot, and with minimal effort, you're getting water all over the place. So just some basic movement principles. Okay, getting in the weeds here on this stuff, but when I make this push, when I knee walk, I'm gonna tilt the screen down a little bit here, but I want that line coming back into my sternum, and I want my thumb basically pushing down. I want it rotating down in, and I want to tuck my shoulder in, and I want to push it forward. There we go. You guys get the beauty shot there. I want to push it forward, and basically what I want to do is I want to treat that line almost like it's a spear. Like unlock your primitive side, like your family's hungry and you got to go and spear a buffalo and take that thing down so that you can feed your family for the winter or whatever you want to envision yourself. But if you have that line like a spear, like I'm tucking my elbow and I'm driving it forward, and I'm using that thumb to kind of rock it forward a little bit like this, instead of being out here. When I'm out here, it's all back of my shoulder. It's all rotator cuff. It's all back of my shoulder. What I want to do is I want to tuck that elbow in and push it forward and keep everything center mass. So when I keep that nozzle reaction center mass, it stays within the like my hips, and I want to keep my hips square, and I actually have that line kind of like bends around and then shoots out the center of my body, and that's just more friction that it's got to work its way around, which adds to better grip. So if my elbow's flaring, then again, it's all back of the shoulder and like trap and bicep that's keeping it, which those fatigue really quickly. If I pack my shoulder down and my lat, my pec are engaged, like that's when I know I'm doing it right, is when my pec and my lats are doing the bulk of the work, okay? And then you drive off the active toe, that keeps the posterior chain doing the work, okay? Driving off that active toe, it makes your entire posterior chain work together, which is very strong compared to just like curling, like we saw that guy earlier, curling with his hamstring. That's something you can't do for very long. I've seen people try it, and then take very short steps. Okay, the shorter the steps, Elbows tucked. That line's going straight, like basically right around my belly button. And I'm just staying behind it. I'm staying behind the nozzle reaction. You know, the hose is curving around my hip there. Elbow tucked, my elbow's not flaring. I'm driving off the toe, and I'm sound. And then when I pivot here, you're just pivoting on that back knee, and you're unweighting this foot, unweighting the back foot there, and you're just staying behind the nozzle reaction. As soon as that nozzle reaction gets outside, that's where you're gonna lose it, or you're gonna fatigue really fast. So again, in the upper corner here, nozzle reaction in the belly button, and then inside palm versus outside palm pressure. So if I take and I put the pressure, if I focus on putting pressure on that line with the fatty part of my palm at the base of my thumb here, okay, what it does, and you can do this yourself, is it causes you to pack your shoulder down. Like when you press down on that, you can feel your pec, your lat, everything else, like your shoulder packs down, which is very strong. If you're gonna like spear something, that's what you want to do it with. So you, boom. If you do it with the outside, it causes your elbow to flare. Okay, so a lot of people that try to put outside palm pressure on the hose, and it causes their elbow to flare. And this is a very weak position. You can see, like here, this guy's elbow's flaring, and then eventually, what that elbow flare does is it causes that line to slip back, and further and further and further, it gets to his hip, and now that's all bicep right there. And again, as soon as you fatigue, your water mapping goes down the drain. Same thing with posture. If you're leaning forward, that's lateral pressure coming out, and you're going to end up slipping. So weight back, drive off of that back toe, take nice short steps, and we're just taking the dogs for a walk in the park here. That's how we're doing it. Pack the shoulder down, line curves around your hip, thumb pressure down and forward. There we go. Keep that nozzle reaction inside the hips at all times. Lock off or the Camelo lock. This is a fan. Or when I or something like that. Again, I've seen people add a sounding component to this. That's awesome. Again, it's effective in straight lines. It's a little bit prone to slipping. It absorbs nozzle reaction really well. The reason why it's my plan B is it's a little bit wider profile. The weight's forward, and I don't like that it's less effective side to side, back behind, all that kind of stuff. It's great straight line. It works really well for some people. I'm not trying to say like, don't use it. This is just kind of how I view these things. The nice thing about the lock off or the Camelo lock is there's a really minimal learning curve. Like the hip grip and stuff is most technical side of things. So if you've only got an hour to spool somebody up, lock off Camelo lock's probably a really good way to go, because it's kind of plug and play. Like you can make them, you can get them pretty close, pretty quick with it. The Zoolander drill, turning left. So left-hand turns are always really hard, whether it's from a lock-off or from a hip grip. They're hard for right-handed nozzle firefighters, because the tendency for that nozzle reaction to get outside of our hips. So I kind of end up doing a little bit of a halfway between a lock-off and halfway between a hip grip when I do it. So you can see right here, I post my outside leg as I'm making the turn. So I build a base, and then I sink back into it. So I'll throw that outside leg, and I push my hip through. And as you push your hip through, it gets the line back behind you, gives you a little bit of slack. Then you settle back into it, get your leg back out front, and then off you go. And when you turn your hips parallel, the line wants to slide off your hips. Don't let your hand get back by your hip. Get the line in front by your belly button, square it up. It's inside palm pressure. If you got good inside palm pressure, you can open with your hand. Here you go. Post this outside leg. And sink back into it.
Cool. Dang.
There you go. So that's an exaggerate, like a hard 90, but you get the point where you post that outside leg, and you can do it a couple of times as you kind of like angle your way into a fire room. You can kind of post and move, post and move. Here's a guy on the right, not good at left-hand turns because he just hasn't practiced them. This is probably this guy's first push. Starts off, technique's breaking down, but then we try to get to, he knows he needs to go left, but he's not able to quite, he gets a little bit of water in there, but he's making it, it's hard. It's hard to get into that left. So you can see him struggling at the end there. Again, he makes it, like he augers in across the finish line there, but we want to make our left turn something where we can keep that upright posture, keep that water mapping where we want it to on our way to the corner. So if you're into kettlebell stuff, Strong First, these guys do a fantastic job of breaking this stuff down. But with kettlebells, with barbells, you really learn a lot about like packing on your shoulders. It protects them, but like these guys explain, the lats connect the upper and lower halves of the body. So when I pack my shoulder down, what I'm actually doing is I'm connecting my lower half of my body and my upper half of my body. So you'll see like people kind of, they'll be bouncing around kind of loose and whatnot with their cores when they're pushing. It's because their lats aren't packed down. By doing that, it's a static hold with your hands up top on the line, and then your bottom half of your body is doing this kind of explosive, like dynamic movement. Well, if your lats aren't packed down and connecting the top and the lower half of your body, what you end up doing is you end up kind of having like this give in the middle, and it fatigues you. So they do a great job of describing what I'm trying to describe here, which is to bring your armpit down to your hip without getting shorter. Like essentially, when you pack your lat down, it's this right here without getting shoulder. Like you're just packing your shoulder down, that connects your upper and your lower half of your body. So the integration of the camella, clamp, and the hip grip. Like I said earlier, with systems, it's important to be able to move between all. So pause it here. Right here. So right here, when I go to lean forward, the whole goal when you're doing this is keep the line open, and I don't want to lose any hose. I don't want to end up with the nozzle back by my body. I want to maintain the same amount of hose out in front of me. So push off that active toe. As I sit up, I'm pushing the line forward like I talked about with like a spear, okay? And I'm driving that line forward so I can get my elbow in front of my knee here. Okay, same thing, start by driving forward, leg comes down, settle back in with that nozzle reaction center mass, and then just kind of let it settle down by the belly button. Okay, so when you're switching to a clamp, it's really important that you don't try to wrap the hose around your leg, you wrap your leg around the hose. So that way the nozzle reaction is not getting outside of your hips. So kick your leg back and extend it around. The other thing is that left elbow, you see that left elbow kind of post on my rib cage. So I drive it forward. As I'm pushing forward on the line, I kick my leg back, wrap it around the hose, pinch it, and pin it to the ground, settle back in. And something we need to know. Everything starts with forward motion. So when I start to go up, like gonna hit the off angle, the back wall, something like that, post out front with the front leg, eyes go first to look behind you, and then stream comes up over the top. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to get my body, as that stream's coming over, it's changing the nozzle reaction plane, and I'm getting my body, I'm following it. My body is always behind the nozzle reaction. I'm always moving my body behind the nozzle reaction. So I'm not just bending the line and then following with my body. My body is tracking with the nozzle reaction at all times and providing a place to absorb it and a line straight down into the ground. My body is always providing, like electricity, ground. So being able to move between these grips allows you to capitalize on the inherent strengths, and it allows you to kind of string them together so that when you get tired with something, like if you're making a long push, like you want to throw it up in a lock off for a second to like catch your breath and flow some water down in the living room or whatever, you can do that and then pick up and keep going. It's all about longevity with this stuff. Double knee variant, I'll show it to you. There's a bunch of them. So the reason why I don't use this is one that I only use in very short bursts. Like I'll finish off like the last 5 feet of a push in a room maybe with this. But you know, we've got that, or you've got double knee down. We've been calling it 4-wheel low. It's nice, low and slow, where you just got both knees on your ground, you're shuffling forward. That way is a really good way. Like if somebody's, if you're teaching somebody who is like, you know, overweight by quite a bit, or somebody who's got a lot of knee injury, hip flexibility issues, 4-wheel low is pretty good. You can't go long distances. It's very inefficient. It'll gas you out, but it can buy somebody, you know, a 5 to 8 foot push. But this double leg kind of shot style, where you're basically one leg, other leg, other leg. Very weight forward, very prone to slipping. There's no sounding. Again, I've seen people add a little bit of a sounding component to it, but it's very, very prone to going way too fast with like waist level, straightforward water mapping, poor water mapping. So I don't like this style very much, you know, to teach their own, but I have found that this results in poor quality pushes more often than not. So this is kind of a hybrid between like Field's crooked lean and Camella. We've got Brandon Schmidt here on, he's got a Camella, and then I'm back here in kind of like the back half of a crooked lean. You know, a great way for like 2.5, or if you have a really inexperienced nozzle crosser in the front, or you've got like holding positions when you're using to, and you want to have like somebody that can break off and go move some stuff for him. It's a really good. Now the downside is you got to have somebody behind feeding line, but add to your repertoire there. When we use the command like peel off, would mean that I just stay and I feed line as he keeps going ahead of me, like we're going to break apart, allow him to go through a doorway or something. You know, we stole that, you know, from Fields. You can use whatever you want. Just want to have something where somebody can kind of keep going. You don't have to continue to stay in unison, but this does require a high level of coordination. Here, we're going to keep going on this. So pushing upstairs. I'm not going to get too much into like body mechanics on this. I will say, you know, people who sound stairs don't sound stairs. I mean, whatever, 6 in one, half dozen the other. You know, do what you think is best. But I will say on stairs, you definitely want to fade to the outside. And this is where we're talking about like that glow coming back from the doorway. you a lot of times when you push upstairs, you'll see the whole upper part is like it's glowing, it's all on fire, and you start to put water up there, and you're just kind of waiting to see like where does that glow come back from, and that's the direction you're going to want to go. You just to the side of that. In here. Okay, so you see that glow kind of starting to come back from the left-hand side. He already knew the fire is over there, but then he works his way up. He should have his stream a little bit higher in the doorway, but he does overall a really good job here on his way up. And then just take it nice and slow. Pause at the top of the stairs. Get water in that room, and then go and finish it off. Pause at the doorway again. Wash that room down real good. And you can see that stairway or that stairwell there is just super clear. We bumped up right behind him. This is at the fire room door, and you can see just how much he knocked it down and sealed it off. That was a good fire attack. Take that outside angle and on the approach up there. The upstairs shot.
All right, there it is. Ready? Wait. Down. We're good, Grace. We're good. Go.
Okay, so he's got to do a 180 at the top of the stairs here. See, his nozzle kind of shuts down, and the reason why his nozzle stops moving is because it's the, rubbing your belly, patting your head thing. If you're not comfortable on stairs, your body's just going to try to stay upright and get the lower half of your body situated while your hands stay stock still. So his stream's not moving for a second until his brain's like, okay, I got this with my lower body, and then he starts to move his stream. Go. You hear him call out fire room. It's really important now because he knows I only need to offload a little bit of hose, and then I can bump up and start searching. And then here's the view from the other side, or from right behind him. So same exact push, just from the stairwell looking up. Great job taking out all the heat from the overhead. And then you can see that thing is just starting to glow around the corner there. He just keeps painting the inside edge. As he hangs to the outside, he's painting the inside edge. Gets to the top. And he does a great job pausing, using the reach of his stream, and then continuing in. Going downstairs, a bunch of different ways to go downstairs. Again, I like being able to, sound and then move down a step, sound, move down a step. The big thing is you just want to, you know that you're fighting gas flame coming up the stairs. Like you're not able to really get water down around that corner onto the stuff that's burning very well. So you want good nozzle movement, and you want to really sit back and just paint the inside corner down below you. You want to stay low, like even lower than I was there. I was pretty high there. So because I wasn't, in heat, but the lower, the more lean back that you can be, the better going downstairs. So good nozzle movement, paint that inside corner. And then when you get to the bottom, really feel it out, like with your foot that probes, really feel it out, because a lot of times there will be like a couple little half steps down there, and you'll end up eating it on the landing if you try to move out on it too soon, thinking it's the floor. So really feel it out. Take your time for a second, get water going, and feel it out with your foot. Okay, that feels like something I can move out onto, and then rock out onto it. Retreating back upstairs. So this is something just kind of worked on at the drill field there. We're kind of utilizing like the shrimp or hip escape motion. If you go to wrestlers or jiu-jitsu guys or anything like that, you kind of recognize the same motion. Posting off that elbow. So basically what you're doing is you're pinching the line and you're posting off your elbow, and you're just moving back with your hips and your elbows posting on the stair above you. And the reason why I really like this is because it keeps you low and you're not pushing up off of the bottom. Like if I found bad stairs, if I found burned out stairs going down a stair push and I needed to get back up the stairs, I don't want to push off of my feet. I want to be able to post off my elbow and then move my hips back. And I also want to be able to keep that nozzle moving because again, I'm fighting pressure. It's a pressure problem coming at me. I can't get the pull, but I got a lot of pressure, so I want that nozzle to keep going. Here it is from the upstairs view. Post off the elbow. And the other thing I like about it is it keeps the bottle neck from getting caught on the stairs. Trying to just hop back up, your bottle gets caught on the stair treads. So multiple rooms. So this is a great drill to do. Like I've got a living room. I'm gonna like a building like I was talking about where it's deeper than it is wide. I got one room. I'm gonna wash down that room and then focus on the next room. Come back up, re-white some of this room here, re-wet it down, and then back on and then back out. Starting the clamp, get water going down into the next space. Get into the center of the room. Okay, I want back wall, I want water all around, and then back onto the next room. Nice and slow. This neck, hit the next threshold, get into the room, water all around. So it's just compartment by compartment by compartment. And now back out. So when you back out, it's basically just open the hips, catch up, open the hips, catch up, open the hips, catch up. Almost done here. Here we go. 2 rooms offset. So when we teach it, like for our recruits, we try to teach them, you know, how to handle 2 rooms on the same side and 2 rooms offset. And this really paid big dividends. Recently, we had a recruit on the nozzle. A couple of recruits actually were on that same line of, I think it was our last academy, and they gave great feedback, which I always appreciate. That showing them how to handle multiple rooms of fire was very beneficial, and they were like, yeah, it was exactly like we were trained. So hit it, shut down, move forward. Take an outside angle, call for the push, start high again. Keep painting that inside corner with that squashed O as you're moving to that outside corner. And then when you get an angle on both those rooms in that hallway, you're posting that junction point where you can reach both, getting water in both rooms. So I'm going to knock down this room, knock down that room. The far room isn't going to be as knocked down, but as you got to get into the room, knock it down completely while the backup, your heel man, your backup, whatever you want to call them, is watching both rooms. Back out. Open up your hips, and then you're back on the other room. So in order to do that, if you're going to get into that first room, you need to make sure that you got a lot of water through the doorway of that far room first. And then I can push into that first room just enough to get everything wet as my backup man is keeping an eye down the hallway. And if at any time he starts seeing, you know, conditions coming back from that room, hey, get back out, back out, back out. And then I'm back on this room here, okay? That's a great drill, and it's paid off big dividends out in the company. So just some lessons learned, like we call it just robotic water application. You know, there's habits you can develop in a drill tower. One of them is just like one size fits all water application approach, like we were talking about earlier, where there will be, you guys will just take this, you know, boom, 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 because they like the audible feedback of the hose, the stream slapping the pavement or the drill tower or whatever. And you know, it doesn't, like by doing so in the fire fire environment. Here on this side, we have a pencil, a scout pencil it. That's a drill field habit. The thing comes right back on. On this side, you'll see a guy just really wide, boom, 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 boom. He's not getting any water in the fire room, the whole advance down. Same thing with this guy, it's really wide. We're not getting any water in the actual doorway. We're not water mapping correctly. So here, stream just goes back and forth in big, wide arcs. And you can see that thing just boiling out over the top of his head. He doesn't actually get water in the fire room until he's right in the doorway, right? So, and that's just a byproduct of being at the drill ground. It's not the, you know, these guys' fault or anything like that. I didn't know before I saw this stuff. I was like, whoa, yeah, when you're in a hallway and you're just going boom, 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 you're only hitting like a few degrees in front of yourself. You're not actually getting water down towards the end of the hall. And then same thing when you're trying to get water in like a doorway, you're going from a big room to a door, you're just going boom and slapping water all over the place. It sounds good when you're on the pavement, but training in context of actually like targeting and being intentional with your water application is so important, because like they say, you want that early water in the fire room. Once you get water in there, it doesn't take much, but you want it as early as possible. The earlier you get it in, you get water in there, the better things get for us, the better things get for people. We see on this one, this is kind of a on this side, you'll see this guy just kind of takes a light and then shuts it down. He doesn't actually, he's not actually flowing water for effect to try to get good droplet fall through. He's just kind of going, and then he's in. And that's just habits developed in a drill tower. Versus this guy on this side, he's in there, he is just a wrecking machine. He's got drywall falling all over the place, and you know, he's got great nozzle movement in there. He's just, everything's wet. It's a water grenade, like Dennis says. Like this guy over here is just kind of lackadaisical, shut the line down, move forward. This guy is the exact opposite. He's just tearing stuff up.
1 second, please.
So just finishing up here. Here's what a couple grade A pushes look like. The right-hand turn, room's flashed over at the end of the hallway here. Like what makes this a grade A push is that like his body mechanics are dialed, his water mapping's dialed in, he's using the reach of his stream. He pauses after he takes the corner. He lets the water kiss and hug down range. He's targeting intentionally. He's sealing off the room ahead. You know, he comes back off and hits the off angle to address the heat, because the heat, he understands the heat took the shape of the box. He tripped a little bit, and because he had good posture and body mechanics, it didn't throw off his water mapping or the rest of his push. He's able to keep going. Great stream movement. It sucked a lot of air down there, cleared everything out really good. That push resulted in a ton of clarity for everybody. If I was searching in the vicinity of that, I would have been stoked on that push. So there's a naked eye view, and then here's the tick view of this guy. And this was, again, same thing. Probably should have started a little bit higher when he opened up, but he recovers really well. And you can see just all the contraction, the lift, and all those gases going with his all that exhaust stopped. Everything's going back towards the fire room. Comes off, it comes back a little bit. That's okay. He's back on it, and then continues. And his pace is just beautifully slow, methodical. He cleans that whole place up really quickly. You can see he just seals off that fire room, and that is just, yeah, beautiful job of confining that fire. So the other big reason why I like that hip grip is because if there's stuff in the way, I can stand up and get over it. And that has been really important, you know, in a lot of different fires where I've got just, you know, contents and couches and all that kind of stuff. You see these guys are all, you know, pushing in acquired structures where we don't have like a bunch of furniture and stuff. I have people like, oh, what about if there's furniture? That's why I love that you know, hip grip, the high hip grip, where I've got that nozzle reaction in my last pack down. I'm able to connect my upper and lower bodies because when I go to, if I encounter something, and I've done this a lot, where I need to like keep the line open and get up over something, I'm able to stand or crouch or whatever, and I don't have to shut the line down. I can just keep going, and I can over, step over stuff. It's a very stable position. Gas is, everything's moving ahead of him with his nozzle. That's how he knows he's winning, so he can start moving ahead with it. And we've already seen this one. Comes up out of the clamp. Great job of keeping nozzle reaction center mass. Very nice, methodical. Nozzle movement maintains. Great job on that push. Crushed it. All right. 1 second. I don't know how to get out of this. All right. That's it. Apologize for keeping you guys so long. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. Just kind of powered straight through the thing there, so we could, if you guys needed to, you know, get up and use the restroom or something, you know, you guys can come back and watch whatever you need. I know it's going to be available for a while. Kyle, I appreciate the standing O. I appreciate it, guys. Hopefully you guys find it useful, and if you guys have any questions, let me know. You guys can, you know, throw them down on here. I'll stay on for a couple minutes and try to answer some questions if you got any. But yeah, just feel free to reach out. I really appreciate Jeff and Fire Nuggets, you know, let me stand up and yammer here, and you know, appreciate any feedback you guys got. Reach out. I'm on Facebook, and that's about it. So you guys feel free to reach out on that. And I'm always up for, you know, you guys you know, hit me up with any questions or just want to chat about this stuff. And then you know, hopefully we're going to be doing some live burns here pretty soon for the engine conference next fall up here in this corner of the woods. And yes, the West Coast Fire Training Facebook page, go look at that. We've got a bunch of videos posts up there, and then an engine company resurrection, and then the West Coast Fire Training guys will be doing a bunch of burns here next fall. So you guys are tired of yammering or hearing me yammer on, which I would be too. Kind of tired of listening to myself. Those guys you won't get tired of. They're awesome. So yeah, appreciate it, guys.